Hello friends. Welcome to Fictional Vortex. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto awakened as the Rinnegan Ranger. With Dino Gem's power and fall in love with all Power Ranger girls, Naruto x Kira Ford, Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Dimensional Convergence. The acrid smoke of battlefield pyres stung Naruto Uzumaki's nostrils as he stood at the precipice of what might be his final stand. The fourth-grade ninja war had reached its crescendo, a symphony of destruction that threatened to consume everything he had ever fought to protect. His tattered orange and black uniform, once a proud declaration of his identity, now hung in tatters against his battle-worn frame. Blood, some his, most belonging to others, had dried in rust-colored patterns across his skin. "We can't hold this position much longer." Sakura's voice cut through the din of combat, her medical expertise having kept dozens alive through sheer force of will. Her once vibrant pink hair was matted with mud and worse things, her green eyes hollowed by witnessing too much death. Naruto nodded, azure eyes scanning the horizon where Madara's forces regrouped. The unnatural stillness before another assault weighed on him, heavier than any physical burden. "I know. Get the wounded back to the secondary position. I'll buy you time." Kakashi appeared at his side in a blur of movement, his Sharingan eye narrowed in calculation. "Whatever you're planning, I hope it's not something recklessly heroic." A ghost of Naruto's signature grin flickered across his face, a remnant of the boy he'd been before war had tempered him into something harder, more focused. "Me, reckless? Never." But even as the familiar banter passed his lips, Naruto felt it, a strange vibration humming beneath his skin, a discordant note in the familiar melody of his chakra. Something fundamental was shifting, like tectonic plates beneath the surface of reality itself. He closed his eyes, reaching inward to the vast reservoir of energy that connected him to Kurama, the nine-tailed fox sealed within. The ancient being's consciousness stirred within their shared mindscape. "You feel it too, Kit," Kurama growled, nine massive tails swaying with agitation in the ethereal space. "Something's wrong with the fabric of this reality. The chakra flows are distorting." Naruto opened his eyes to see iridescent fractures appearing in the air before him, like cracks in glass illuminated by sunlight. "What's happening?" The fractures expanded, reality itself seeming to splinter along invisible fault lines. The battlefield around him began to waver, images doubling and tripling like reflections in broken mirrors. Naruto felt his body being pulled toward the anomaly, a gravitational force he couldn't resist. "Naruto!" Sakura screamed, lunging for him, fingers outstretched. Their hands missed by millimeters as the rift between dimensions swallowed him whole. The experience of interdimensional travel wasn't something human senses were equipped to process. Naruto felt simultaneously compressed to the size of an atom and expanded beyond the boundaries of galaxies. Colors he had no names for assaulted his vision while sounds beyond human hearing vibrated through his very molecules. Time lost all meaning. He might have been falling for seconds or centuries. Through the maelstrom, a strange resonance called to him. Deep within his core, something dormant stirred. Behind his eyelids, an ancient power awakened, concentric ripples expanding outward like stones dropped in still water. The Rinnegan, the legendary dujutsu of the Sage of Six Paths, sleeping within his genetic code. Catalyzed by this impossible journey between worlds. When reality reasserted itself, Naruto crashed into asphalt with bone-jarring force, the impact driving the air from his lungs. Gasping, he rolled onto his back, blinking up at an unfamiliar sky, too blue, too clear to be the smoke-filled battlefield he'd just left. The cacophony of urban life assaulted his heightened senses, mechanical roars, electronic chirps, and the babble of human voices speaking a language that should have been foreign but somehow translated perfectly in his mind. Tall buildings of glass and steel surrounded him, structures unlike anything in the five great nations. "What the hell?" Naruto muttered, pushing himself to his feet. His body felt wrong, heavier in some places, lighter in others, as if the fundamental laws governing his existence had subtly shifted. A woman screamed somewhere nearby, followed by sounds of destruction. Instinct took over. Whatever strange place he'd landed in, people in danger remained a constant across all worlds. Naruto leapt upward, chakra automatically channeling to his feet as he scaled the side of the nearest building for a better vantage point. From the rooftop, he witnessed chaos unfolding in a nearby park. Strange creatures, reptilian humanoids with scaled armor and wickedly curved blades, were terrorizing civilians. Leading them was a monstrous figure that resembled a grotesque fusion of dinosaur and machine, its body partially covered in metallic plating with glowing red circuitry pulsing beneath translucent scales. Tyrannodrones, find the civilian with the energy signature. The creature bellowed, its voice a mechanized snarl. Lord Mesogog demands results. Fighting against these creatures was a young woman in yellow, her outfit reminiscent of the ceremonial armor Naruto had seen in historical texts, but with a sleek, technological edge. A yellow helmet obscured her features, its visor shaped like the beak of some prehistoric bird. She moved with practiced efficiency, her fighting style combining formal martial arts with improvised street tactics. "Not happening, scale face," she shouted, her voice carrying a musical quality even through the helmet's filter. "The only thing you're getting today is a one-way ticket back to your fossil collection." Despite her bravado, Naruto could see she was overwhelmed. One defender against at least 15 attackers. With civilians still in the danger zone. The mathematical certainty of defeat hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Naruto didn't hesitate. He formed a familiar hand sign, drawing on chakra that now flowed with strange new currents. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 5 perfect duplicates materialized beside him in puffs of smoke. Without needing verbal instructions, they dispersed, 2 moving to evacuate civilians while 3 joined him in leaping down toward the battle. The yellow armored fighter had just been knocked backward by a particularly vicious blow when Naruto landed between her and her attackers, his back to her as he faced the reptilian horde. The concrete cracked under his feet from the force of his landing, dust billowing outward. "What the?" she began, but Naruto cut her off. "Stay back, I've got this." He drew a kunai from his pouch, the familiar weight centering him in this unfamiliar world. "Unless you want to tag in." The creatures hesitated, reptilian heads tilting in confusion at this unexpected intervention. Their leader stepped forward, mechanical components whirring. "Another human protector. Your energy signature is anomalous. Identify yourself." Naruto grinned, feeling the strange new power pulsing behind his eyes. When he opened them, the concentric rings of the Rinnegan glowed with ethereal purple light. "Naruto Uzumaki, ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village. And you're attacking innocent people, which means you've got about 10 seconds to leave before I make you regret it." The monster seemed to analyze him, red optical sensors flaring. "Capture him. That energy reading is off the charts." The reptilian foot soldiers, Tyrannodrones, the monster had called them, charged forward in perfect unison. Naruto's shadow clones intercepted the first wave, engaging in hand-to-hand combat while Naruto himself blurred into action. The yellow armored fighter watched in astonishment as this strange newcomer moved with impossible speed. His fighting style unlike anything recorded in Ranger archives. He didn't just fight, he flowed like water, redirecting force and striking with devastating precision. Most baffling of all were the perfect duplicates fighting alongside him, not illusions or projections, but solid beings that could take and deal damage. "Who are you?" she whispered, her suit's sensors struggling to categorize the energy he emitted, neither morphing grid power nor any known alien signature. Naruto dispatched 3 opponents with a spinning kick, his body moving on muscle memory developed through years of combat. These creatures were strong but predictable, their patterns easy to read for someone trained to fight the lightning-fast elite of the ninja world. "Kira, are you all right?" A voice called through the yellow fighter's communicator. "We're detecting a massive energy spike near your position." "I'm fine, drive." "Oh," she responded, rising to her feet. "But we've got a situation. There's someone here fighting Zeltrax and the Tyrannodrones, and he's winning. Solo." "That's impossible," another voice cut in. No civilian could stand against that many without ranger powers. "Kira, watch." As Naruto created even more duplicates, surrounding the remaining enemies. "Trust me, Ethan, this guy is definitely not your average civilian." Naruto felt the strange energy patterns of this world interacting with his chakra, creating unexpected effects. When he channeled wind nature chakra into his kunai, the blade glowed with yellow energy that reminded him of the armored woman's outfit. Strike left trails of light in the air, his weapons cutting through the creature's armor with surprising ease. Whoever you are, Kira called out, rejoining the fight, we make a pretty good team. Naruto grinned, falling naturally into sync with her movements. Where she was precise and technical, he was unpredictable and adaptable. They covered each other's openings without needing to communicate, as though they'd trained together for years instead of meeting minutes ago. The mechanized dinosaur creature, Zeltrax, Kira had called him, observed the battle with calculating malice. This interference was not in our projections. Retreating to recalibrate, he raised a clawed hand, opening a swirling portal of sickly green energy. This isn't over, Ranger. And you, Anomaly, Lord Mesogog WILL be very interested in your energy signature. As the remaining creatures escaped through the portal, Naruto felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. The strange new power behind his eyes pulsed painfully, the Rinnegan's activation taking its toll on his already battle-worn body. His shadow clones dispersed in puffs of smoke as his concentration wavered. Whoa, easy there, Kira said, catching his arm as he stumbled. That was incredible. But who are you? What are you? Naruto took a steadying breath, the world spinning around him. I told you, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. As for what I am. He looked down at his hands, feeling the unfamiliar currents of energy flowing through him. I'm not entirely sure anymore. Before Kira could respond, 3 more armored figures arrived, red, blue, and black. Their designs similar to hers but with different animal motifs. The black armored figure stepped forward, an air of authority in his stance. Power down, he commanded, and in a flash of light, all 4 transformed. Where armored warriors had stood moments before, 4 ordinary young people now faced Naruto. The one who had worn yellow, Kira, was a beautiful young woman with dirty blonde hair, warm brown eyes, and an edge of rebellious individuality in her style. A guitar case was strapped to her back, suggesting musical talents beyond her fighting skills. Doctor. Oh, this is the guy the first was telling you about, she said. Gesturing to Naruto, he took on half a dozen Tyrannodrones by himself, and he can create duplicates. Like, actual solid copies of himself. The older man in black, Drive. Oh, apparently, studied Naruto with the careful assessment of someone who had seen too many threats to take anything at face value. I'm Drive, Tommy Oliver. This is Connor, Ethan, and you've met Kira. We're the Power Rangers, protectors of this city. Power Rangers, Naruto repeated, the term unfamiliar yet somehow resonating with the new energy he felt coursing through him. You're not from around here, are you? Tommy asked, his eyes narrowing slightly. Your energy signature is unlike anything I've ever encountered, and I've encountered plenty. Naruto laughed, the sound hollow with exhaustion and displacement. You could say that. I'm not even sure where. Here is Reefside, California, the blue one, Ethan supplied helpfully. United States of America, planet Earth. Ringing any bells? None of the words meant anything to Naruto, confirming what he already suspected. I'm from a place called Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. I was fighting in a war when something tore open. Next thing I know, I'm here. Tommy exchanged glances with his team, in spoken communication passing between them. I think you'd better come with us. We have equipment that might help us figure out what's happening. Naruto nodded, then winced as another wave of pain radiated from his eyes. The Rinnegan's activation, combined with the interdimensional travel and subsequent battle, had drained him more than he realized. Are you okay? Kira asked, genuine concern in her voice. Your eyes were purple earlier, with these weird circles. Now they're blue. It's complicated, Naruto managed, fighting to stay conscious. The power, it's new. I can't control it yet. Tommy stepped forward. We've got a secure location where you can rest and we can talk. If what I suspect is true, you've been pulled across dimensions, and that kind of travel takes a toll on the body. Dimensions. Connor, the one in red, finally spoke up. Like, parallel universes, comic book stuff. After everything we've seen as Rangers, you're still skeptical about parallel dimensions. Ethan countered. Their banter faded as darkness crept into the edges of Naruto's vision. The last thing he saw before consciousness fled was Kira's concerned face as she moved to catch him. Dash dash dash. Dreams and memories blurred together in Naruto's unconscious mind. The battlefield of the Fourth Great Ninja War transformed into strange alien landscapes. Faces of friends and enemies morphed into creatures he'd never seen. Through it all, a persistent humming resonated in his core, the Rinnegan responding to something in this new world. He awoke to the soft hum of machinery and the sterile scent of a laboratory. Opening his eyes cautiously, Naruto found himself lying on a medical bed in a high-tech facility. The walls were lined with computers and equipment he couldn't begin to identify, glowing displays showing incomprehensible data. "Our guest is awake," a woman's voice observed. Turning his head, Naruto saw a red-haired woman in a white lab coat studying one of the monitors. "Vital signs are stabilizing, but his energy patterns are like nothing in our database." Tommy approached the bed, his expression more open than before. "How are you feeling?" Naruto sat up slowly, testing his body's responses. "Better. Whatever that was. I think I'm adjusting. Your cellular structure is fascinating," the woman said. Turning from her monitor, "It's as if your body is adapted to channel energy in ways completely different from our own. I'm Haley, by the way. The technical brains behind this operation." "Nice to meet you," Naruto replied automatically, social niceties persisting even across dimensional boundaries. "So, I really am in another world." Tommy nodded gravely. "Based on our readings and what you've told us, you've crossed what we call a dimensional membrane, the barrier separating different realities. It's rare, but not unprecedented in our experience as Rangers." "The Power Rangers," Naruto repeated, remembering their armored forms. "You're warriors of some kind." "We protect Earth from those who would harm it," Tommy explained. "The dinosaur-themed suits you saw are powered by the morphing grid, a universal energy field that grants us abilities beyond normal humans." Naruto considered this, finding parallels to his own world's chakra system. "Where I come from, we harness an energy called chakra. It flows through all living things, but some of us, shinobi, are trained to control and shape it." "That would explain the duplicates," Ethan said excitedly, entering the lab with Connor and Kira. "You were manipulating this chakra to create physical copies of yourself." Naruto nodded. "Shadow clone jutsu. It's one of my specialties." "Jutsu?" Kira asked, settling into a chair beside his bed. "Like techniques." "Exactly. Different hand signs and chakra control create different effects. Some elemental, some physical, some other things." Naruto hesitated, unsure how much to reveal about the darker arts of his world. Tommy studied him with increasing interest. "And the eyes. Kira mentioned your eyes changed during the battle." Naruto closed his eyes, reaching inward to the new power that had awakened during his dimensional transit. When he opened them again, the concentric purple rings of the Rinnegan glowed softly, casting faint illumination on his face. "The Rinnegan," he explained, feeling the power pulse through his optical nerves and into his brain. "It's a rare dujutsu, technique, from my world. I shouldn't have it. It bellow NGS to a legendary figure from our history. Somehow, crossing dimensions must have activated dormant genes or something." The lab's sensors immediately began beeping, readings spiking across multiple monitors. Haley rushed to check the data, her expression shifting from scientific curiosity to concern. "Tommy, look at this," she said, pointing to a particular reading. "His energy signature is R-ESO-nating with the remnant Dino gem fragments." Tommy's eyes widened. "That's impossible. The Dino gems choose their bearers based on compatible DNA and personality traits. No one from another dimension should be able to form a connection." Quote, "Dino gems?" Naruto asked, the Rinnegan fading as his concentration shifted. Connor held up his wrist, showing a bracelet with a red stone embedded in it. "These are what give us our powers. They're ancient artifacts with connections to the dinosaurs that once ruled Earth." As if responding to the conversation, a small glass container on a nearby pedestal began to glow. Inside, fragments of crystals in various colors pulsed with internal light, the rhythm matching Naruto's heartbeat perfectly. "Okay, that's new," Ethan commented, backing away slightly. "Doctor." "Oh." Tommy approached the container cautiously. "These are fragments we recovered after various battles, pieces too small to bond with anyone. They shouldn't be active." Naruto felt a pull toward the glowing fragments. An inexorable attraction that had nothing to do with physical magnetism and everything to do with resonance on a fundamental level. Before anyone could stop him, he was on his feet, moving toward the pedestal as if in a trance. Naruto. Wait, Tommy began, but it was too late. The moment Naruto's fingers touched the glass, the fragments inside exploded with light. The container shattered, but instead of flying outward dangerously, the crystal shards hovered in the air, orbiting around Naruto's body like a miniature solar system. Each fragment glowed with a different color: red, blue, yellow, black, white, pink, their light combining into a prismatic aura that enveloped him completely. The Rinnegan activated involuntarily, its purple glow intersecting with the rainbow light of the Dino gems. Where the energies met, new patterns formed, fractals of power that rewrote the very physics of the space around Naruto. "What's happening to me?" Naruto gasped, feeling the gems, energy flowing into him, intertwining with his chakra and the Rinnegan's power to create something entirely new. "The fragments are bonding with him," Haley said in disbelief. "Not just one color, but all of them simultaneously. That's never happened before." Tommy moved closer, his experience with Ranger powers giving him insights the others lacked. "I think the Rinnegan is acting as a conduit. Instead of rejecting the different gem energies as incompatible, it's harmonizing them." The light show reached its crescendo as the gem fragments physically merged with Naruto's body, sinking beneath his skin without breaking it. The final flash momentarily blinded everyone in the lab. When their vision cleared, Naruto stood transformed. His tattered ninja uniform had been replaced by a seamless bodysuit that incorporated elements of Ranger armor without being a direct copy. The base was deep orange, his signature color, but iridescent patterns across the surface shifted through all the colors of the Dino gems as he moved. On his chest, a stylized emblem combined the spiral symbol of his Uzumaki heritage with a three-toed dinosaur footprint. Most striking of all, a mask covered the lower half of his face, reminiscent of his mentor Kakashi's, but allowing the Rinnegan to remain visible when activated. "Okay, that was both the coolest and freakiest thing I've ever seen," Connor admitted, breaking the stunned silence. "And I've seen a lot of freaky stuff since becoming a ranger." Naruto examined his new appearance with a mixture of awe and confusion. "This is not a standard jutsu result." "No," Tommy agreed, circling Naruto to examine the transformation from all angles. "This is something new, a fusion of Ranger technology and your world's chakra system, catalyzed by the Rinnegan." Hira approached cautiously, reaching out to touch the material of Naruto's new suit. "It feels like our Ranger suits, but different. More alive somehow." The moment her fingers made contact, a spark of yellow energy passed between them. Hira gasped, not in pain but surprise. "I felt that, like our powers recognized each other." Naruto nodded, understanding instinctively. "The yellow fragment, it resonated with you specifically. That's why I feel a stronger connection to you than the others." The implications of that statement hung in the air for a moment before Haley cleared her throat. "I should run some diagnostics on both of you. This kind of power interaction could have unforeseen consequences." Before she could begin, the lab's alarm system blared to life. Screens around the room switched to external camera feeds, showing chaos erupting in downtown Reefside. The reptilian tyrannodrones had returned in greater numbers, accompanied by the mechanized dinosaur creature from before. But they weren't alone. Beside Zeltrax stood a figure that made Naruto's blood run cold, a pale-skinned man with glasses and silver hair, wearing modified versions of traditional shinobi attire adapted to this world's aesthetic. His hands were covered in scales, and when he smiled, his tongue flicked out with reptilian length. "Kabuto," Naruto whispered, recognition and dread mingling in his voice. "He followed me through the rift." "You know him?" Tommy asked sharply. "Kabuto Yakushi. He's from my world, a dangerous rogue ninja with abilities that let him incorporate others' DNA into his body. He was working with our enemies during the war." Naruto's expression hardened. "If he's here, things just got a lot more complicated." On the screen, Kabuto surveyed the destruction with clinical detachment, occasionally making notes on some kind of device. Beside him, Zeltrax gestured aggressively, seemingly arguing about their approach. "They're scanning for your energy signature," Haley realized, checking the readings. The dimensional rift must have left a trace they can follow. Then I need to lead them away from civilians, Naruto decided immediately. The protective instincts that defined his character asserting themselves regardless of which dimension he occupied. Not alone, Kira insisted, stepping forward. Whatever this connection is between our powers, we're stronger together than apart. Tommy nodded in agreement. The whole team goes. If this Kabuto is as dangerous as you say, we'll need all hands on deck. Ready? Connor asked, taking the lead position as the team assembled. The others nodded, raising their bracelet-mounted morphers. Ready? Dino Thunder, power up. Ha! They called in unison, transforming in flashes of colored light into their armored ranger forms. Naruto watched in fascination as the transformation sequence completed, leaving the 4 rangers battle-ready. With a thought, he activated his own new powers. Feeling the Dino Gem energy surge through his chakra network as the Rinnegan blazed to life. Let's see what this new power can do, he said, his voice resonating with newfound confidence. Downtown Reefside had transformed into a war zone. Cars lay overturned, windows shattered, and terrified civilians fled in all directions as Tyrannodrones methodically searched the area, scanning with handheld devices. Zeltrax stood at a major intersection, his mechanized body interfaced directly with a larger scanner. The energy signature is strongest in this vicinity, he reported to Kabuto, who was examining a sample taken from the dimensional tier. Your chakra detection modifications have increased efficiency by 63%. Kabuto smiled, pushing his glasses up with one finger. Of course they have. Your technology combined with my biological understanding creates possibilities neither world imagined alone. His smile faded. But we need the source. If Naruto Uzumaki is indeed here, his unique chakra signature is key to maintaining the dimensional aperture. Lord Mesogog cares nothing for your dimensional studies, Zeltrax growled. He seeks only the power his anomaly represents for his planetary reclamation project. And he shall have applications of that power, Kabuto assured him smoothly. Once I've extracted what I need for my own purposes. Our uneasy alliance was interrupted by a chorus of explosions as 5 multicolored smoke bombs detonated around them. Through the clearing haze, 5 figures emerged, the 4 Power Rangers, and a 5th in orange-based iridescent armor. Sorry to break up your interdimensional evil convention, Connor called out, the Red Ranger taking point. But destroying our city is definitely against local ordinances. Kabuto's eyes widened behind his glasses as they fixed on Naruto. Fascinating. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki, not only alive in this dimension but already adapting its power systems. And those eyes. He leaned forward, scientific curiosity momentarily overwhelming his caution. You've awakened the Rinnegan. The dimensional transit must have triggered dormant Otsutsuki genes in your DNA. Truly remarkable. Save the analysis for your lab notes, Naruto replied coldly, the Rinnegan glowing brighter as his anger rose. If you think I'm going to be your research subject, you're even crazier than you were back home. Home, Kabuto repeated thoughtfully, an increasingly relative concept, wouldn't you agree? This world has so much to offer minds like ours, Naruto. The fusion of chakra this morphing grid energy could revolutionize both realities. Enough talk, Zeltrax interrupted, his patience exhausted. Tyrannodrones, capture the orange one and eliminate the Rangers. The battle erupted with explosive force as both sides engaged. The Rangers fought with practiced teamwork, their color-coded weapons cutting through the Tyrannodrone ranks with practiced efficiency. Tom, why? The Black Ranger, moved with the skill of a veteran warrior, his brachio staff channeling elemental energy that reminded Naruto of high-level jutsu. Naruto himself discovered that his new powers enhanced his existing abilities in unexpected ways. When he created shadow clones, each duplicate manifested aspects of different Dino Gem energies, some faster, some stronger, some with elemental affinities beyond his original wind nature. This is incredible, he murmured, feeling the seamless integration of chakra and Dino energy. The Rinnegan allowed him to perceive the flow of both power systems, identifying nodes and pathways that could be manipulated for maximum effect. Kira fought her way to his side, her Terra grips slicing through enemies with yellow energy-enhanced strikes. How are you handling the new power set? She asked, ducking under a Tyrannodrone's swing before countering with a kick that sent it flying. "It feels right," Naruto replied, surprised by the truth of his own words. "Like these powers were waiting for me, or I was waiting for them." Their momentary conversation ended as Kabuto launched his attack, his body transforming partially into a serpentine form innocent of his master Orochimaru's techniques. Scales erupted along his arms as he weaved hand signs Naruto recognized all too well. Hidden shadow snake hands. Serpents shot from Kabuto's sleeves, but unlike the normal jutsu, these snakes crackled with the same sickly green energy that powered the dimensional portal. Where they struck, reality itself seemed to warp slightly. "Don't let those touch you," Naruto warned, creating a defensive line of shadow clones. He's infused them with dimensional energy. Tommy engaged Zeltrax directly, their personal rivalry evident in the intensity of their combat. "What are you planning with this interdimensional ally, Zeltrax?" he demanded, parrying a vicious swing from his opponent's sword. "Lord Mesogog recognizes potential when he sees it," Zeltrax replied, mechanical components whirring as he increased power to his weapons systems. "This, shinobi, understands what you Rangers never will: evolution requires revolution." While the battle raged across the intersection, Haley's voice came through the Rangers' communicators. "I'm detecting energy buildup consistent with the original dimensional tear. Whatever they're doing is weakening the barriers between worlds." Naruto heard this through his own newly established communication link, understanding immediately what it meant. Kabuto's trying to widen the rift. If he succeeds, more than just him could cross over. The implications were terrifying. Madara, the 10 Tails, the entire war spilling into this unprepared world. Naruto couldn't allow it, drawing on his new understanding of the Rinnegan's abilities. Naruto focused on the dimensional energies Kabuto was manipulating. The legendary eyes granted him perception beyond normal sight. He could actually see the fractures in reality. The weak points where Kabuto's experiments were straining the membrane between worlds. "Cover me," he told Kira, who nodded and moved into a defensive position around him. Centering himself, Naruto formed a new sequence of hand signs, combining traditional chakra molding with instinctive knowledge granted by the Dino gems. 6 Paths Technique. Dimensional Seal. The Rinnegan flared, with unprecedented brightness as Naruto exerted his will upon the fabric of reality itself. The fractured areas began to stabilize, quantum particles realigning under his influence. Kabuto felt the resistance immediately, his serpentine features contorting with rage. No, the convergence point was perfect. He abandoned his fight with Ethan and Connor, lunging toward Naruto with inhuman speed. "I won't let you close what I've worked so hard to open." Kira intercepted him with a Terra scream, the sonic attack amplified by her ranger powers. The concentrated sound waves struck Kabuto with physical force, disrupting his chakra network and sending him crashing into a nearby building. "Thanks," Naruto said, maintaining his focus on the dimensional sealing technique. "Anytime," Kira replied, the smile evident in her voice despite her helmet concealing her face. "That's what teammates do." The word, teammate, resonated with Naruto, memories of Team 7 flashing through his mind. Though he'd known these rangers for mere hours, the connection felt natural, particularly with Kira, whose yellow Dino gem energy harmonized with specific aspects of his chakra. Kabuto recovered quickly, his defied body healing at an accelerated rate. "Zeltrax," he called to his mechanical ally. "Deploy the dimensional amplifier." Now, Zeltrax disengaged from his battle with Tommy, reaching for a device on his belt. Before he could activate it, Connor streaked forward with superhuman speed, his special ranger ability allowing him to move faster than the eye could track. "I don't think so." The Red Ranger snatched the device mid-draw, his momentum carrying him past Zeltrax before the cyborg could react. "Insolent child," Zeltrax roared, firing energy blasts from his sword that Connor narrowly avoided. With the immediate threat of dimensional amplification neutralized, Naruto completed his sealing technique. The fractures in reality closed one by one, the unnatural energy dissipating as the boundaries between worlds reasserted themselves. Kabuto observed this with clinical detachment despite his setback. "Fascinating. The Rinnegan allows him to manipulate dimensional constants directly. That was not in my calculations." He turned to Zeltrax. We need to retreat and recalibrate our approach. Rangers never let their enemies retreat, Connor declared, the team regrouping for a final assault. Kabuto smiled thinly. Perhaps not, but I believe you'll find yourselves otherwise occupied. He performed a complex series of hand signs. Summoning jutsu. Reanimation. The ground trembled. As a coffin-like structure erupted from beneath the asphalt. Its lid fell away to reveal a figure that made Naruto's heart skip a beat, a reanimated shinobi with paper-white skin and grotesque modifications. His body a patchwork of different individuals' parts. Impossible, Naruto breathed. Danzo Shimura, you brought him across dimensions. Not exactly, Kabuto explained, clearly pleased by Naruto's shock. Merely a DNA sample I had preserved, now enhanced with this world's unique properties. Consider it a parting gift while we develop our next approach. Before the Rangers could stop them, Kabuto and Zeltrax disappeared through another dimensional portal, smaller and more stable than the rift that had brought Naruto to this world. The reanimated Danzo lurched forward, his movement jerky but gaining fluidity with each step. On his arm, beneath bandages that were unraveling, multiple Sharingan eyes began to open, a horrific collection stolen from the Uchiha clan in Naruto's world. What is that thing? Ethan asked, repulsed by the unnatural monstrosity. A reanimated corpse, Naruto explained grimly. Enhanced with stolen dujutsu from my world. In life, he was a ruthless, political figure who would sacrifice anyone for what he called the greater good. So basically, he was a jerk before, and now he's a zombie jerk, Connor summarized. Great. Danzo's reanimated form surveyed them with cold calculation, the multiple Sharingan eyes granting him enhanced perception. Uzumaki, he rasped, voice distorted by the imperfect reanimation. Always interfering with necessary sacrifice. This world, like ours, requires strong hands to guide it, even if stained with blood. Some things never change, even across dimensions, Naruto replied, readying himself for combat. You were wrong in our world. And you're wrong in this one. The Rangers positioned themselves for battle, but Naruto held up a hand. This is my fight. Danzo's abilities are specifically designed to counter multiple opponents. We don't abandon teammates, Tommy stated firmly. Naruto nodded in appreciation. I'm not asking you to abandon me. I'm asking you to trust me. After a moment's hesitation, Tommy gave a short nod. We'll handle civilian evacuation and contain the area. But if you need us, I'll call, Naruto promised. But this is something I need to face. As the Rangers moved to secure the perimeter, Kira lingered a moment longer. Be careful, she said softly. Whatever history you have with this guy, remember you're not fighting alone anymore. The simple statement carried weight beyond its words. Naruto had always drawn strength from bonds with others, it was the core of his ninja way. Now, in this strange new world, new bonds were already forming. I will, he assured her. The Rinnegan glowing with renewed purpose as she departed. Facing Danzo's reanimated form, Naruto felt the combined power of the Dino gems resonating with his chakra. The Rinnegan grant him perception of energy flows that would have been invisible before, including the unnatural currents animating Danzo's corpse. Your technique is flawed, Kabuto, Naruto called out, though the medic nin was long gone. Crossing dimensions weakened the reanimation jutsu. The connection isn't stable. Danzo charged forward with unexpected speed, his bandaged arm unwrapping completely to reveal 10 implanted Sharingan eyes. Stability is irrelevant. Power is absolute. Naruto met the charge head-on, the Rinnegan tracking every subtle movement of his opponent. Where once he might have relied purely on overwhelming force and shadow clones, now he fought with calculated precision, targeting the specific weaknesses in the reanimation technique. The battle intensified as Danzo activated Iza Nagi, the forbidden Sharingan technique that allowed him to rewrite reality itself, turning fatal blows into mere illusions at the cost of blinding each eye used. In their previous encounter, this had made him nearly unkillable until all eyes were exhausted. But the Rinnegan gave Naruto an advantage he hadn't possessed before. He could see the dimensional distortions created by Izanagi, the temporary tears in the fabric of reality. And with his new Dino gem enhanced abilities, he could counter them. 6 Paths Technique. Reality Anchor. Naruto called out, channeling power through the Rinnegan to stabilize the local dimensional constants. The purple ripples in his eyes expanded, overlaying Danzo's reality-altering effects with a stronger pattern. Danzo's next Izanagi failed, the eye closing permanently without negating the devastating blow Naruto landed. Impossible. The reanimated shinobi growled. You cannot counter Izanagi without Izanami. I'm not countering it, Naruto explained, moving with fluid grace that incorporated both ninja training and instinctive knowledge of ranger combat styles. I'm stabilizing the dimensional constants so your technique can't get purchase. Different approach, same result. As they fought across the devastated intersection, Naruto realized something crucial: the reanimation was weakening. Each time Danzo used a Sharingan, the connection to Kabuto's control grew more tenuous. The interdimensional nature of the jutsu had created inherent instabilities. Focusing his awareness through the Rinnegan, Naruto could perceive the chakra thread binding Danzo's soul to the reconstructed body. With precise application of his new abilities, he could sever those connections. Danzo, Naruto said, voice solemn despite the heat of battle. You don't belong in this world or ours anymore. Whatever purpose Kabuto brought you back for, it's not worth the suffering of continued half-existence. Spare me your sentimentality, Uzumaki, Danzo spat, launching another attack. Death is merely an inconvenience to those with true vision. No, Naruto countered, dodging the strike and positioning himself for his final technique. Death is the natural conclusion to life. Fighting that natural order is what created monsters like Madara and you. Drawing on the combined power of his chakra, the Rinnegan, and the Dino gems, Naruto formed a series of hand signs that culminated in a seal he'd never used before, one that came instinctively from his new understanding of dimensional energies. Rinnegan Art. Soul Liberation Jutsu. The concentric circles of the Rinnegan projected outward, surrounding Danzo in rings of purple light. Where they touched his reanimated body, the unnatural bindings began to dissolve. The Sharingan eyes closed one by one, not from Izanagi use but from the natural release of the trapped souls within them. What are you doing? Danzo demanded, his voice losing its distorted quality as the jutsu progressed. Freeing you, Naruto answered simply, and all the Uchiha souls bound in those stolen eyes. Go to whatever awaits in the pure world, Danzo Shimura. Your time in both our worlds is done. The reanimation crumbled, the borrowed flesh returning to base elements as the controlling chakra dissipated. The stolen Sharingan eyes dissolved into motes of light that scattered upward like embers from a dying fire. For a brief moment, Naruto thought he saw gratitude in Danzo's expression before it, too, faded away. As the last traces of the reanimation disappeared, Naruto felt the enormous expenditure of energy catch up with him. He swayed on his feet, the Rinnegan flickering as his chakra reserves approached depletion. The Rangers returned to find him kneeling in the center of the intersection. His transformation receding to reveal his human form once more. Kira reached him first, concern evident as she helped him to his feet. That was amazing, she said, supporting his weight with surprising strength. But also terrifying. Is that the kind of thing you deal with in your world? Naruto managed a tired smile. That was actually relatively mild compared to some things. The 10 tai ls makes that look like a practice session. 10 tails, Ethan asked, then shook his head. Actually, I don't want to know right now. Let's get you back to the lab before anything else decides to cross dimensions. Tommy approached, his expression serious despite the victory. What Kabuto and Zeltrax were attempting, it could have catastrophic consequences for both our worlds. This isn't over. No, Naruto agreed, looking at the spot where the dimensional portal had closed. Kabuto's brilliant and dangerous. Whatever he's planning with your enemies here, we need to be ready. As they made their way back to Tommy's laboratory, Naruto felt the strange resonance between his chakra and Kira's Dino gem energy, a harmonization that seemed to strengthen the more time they spent together. Something about her specific frequency matched aspects of his own energy signature, creating a connection beyond simple teamwork. The implications would have to wait. For now, he had a new team, new powers, and a dangerous interdimensional threat to confront. As foreign as this world was, some things remained constant across all dimensions: the need to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, and the strength found in bonds with others. Looking at the Rangers who had accepted him without hesitation, Naruto felt something he hadn't expected to find in this strange new reality, the beginnings of home. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Power and Purpose. Dawn painted Reefside's skyline in watercolor hues of amber and rose as Naruto perched atop Tommy Oliver's roof, legs folded in a familiar meditation posture. 3 days had passed since his dimensional displacement, 3 days of adjustment, discovery, and the persistent ache of homesickness that stabbed at unexpected moments. The cool morning air carried unfamiliar scents. Gasoline, concrete, electronics, a chemical symphony so different from Konoha's earthy perfume of forest and mountain. Behind closed eyelids, Naruto observed the strang, new energy pathways developing throughout his body. The Dino gem fragments had integrated with his chakra network, creating hybrid channels where two fundamentally different power systems intertwined like lovers. His customary blue chakra now shimmered with prismatic highlights where Dino energy infused it. Most fascinating was how these energies converged behind his eyes, fueling the Rinnegan eye. In ways that defied conventional understanding from either world. Your chakra has patterns of never seen before, Kurama observed from their shared mindscape. The nine-tailed fox had remained unusually quiet since their arrival, assessing this new reality with ancient caution. This world's energy is primordial. Like it remembers when dinosaurs ruled. The morphing grid, Naruto replied internally, maintaining his outward stillness. Dr. Oliver says it's connected to all living things across time and space. Reminds me of nature chakra, but more structured. Be careful, Kit, Kurama warned, Nine Tails swaying pensively. Your body is adapting remarkably well, but these changes are unprecedented. Even the Sage of Six Paths never encountered power from beyond dimensional boundaries. The sound of a window sliding open interrupted their conversation. Naruto opened his eyes, ordinary blue for now, the Rinnegan dormant, and turned to see Kira climbing out onto the roof. She wore yellow pajama pants with little musical notes and a faded band t-shirt, her honey blonde hair tousled from sleep. There you are, she said, carefully navigating the sloped surface. Haley's sensors showed your energy signature up here. Do you always meditate at the crack of dawn? Naruto smiled, the expression warming features that had grown more angular since the war began. In my world, shinobi learn to use every available moment. Sleep when you can, train when you can't. Kira settled beside him, pulling her knees to her chest against the morning chill. Must be exhausting, living like that. You get used to it. Naruto shrugged. Besides, aren't rangers always on call? Tommy mentioned your communicators work 24/7. Fair point, she conceded, studying him with those perceptive brown eyes that seemed to look beneath surface impressions. Having trouble sleeping? The directness of her question caught him off guard. People in his world, especially shinobi, typically circled emotional subjects cautiously. Professional habit transforming vulnerability into tactical disadvantage. Kira's straightforward concern disarmed his practiced defenses. Yes, he admitted, every time I close my eyes, I see the battlefield I left behind. My friends fighting, maybe dying, while I'm stranded here in a world with indoor plumbing and pizza delivery. His attempt at humor fell flat. Kira didn't smile, but neither did she offer empty reassurances. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing his forearm with gentle pressure. That doesn't make you selfish, you know. Missing them. Feeling guilty for being safe when they might not be. Something in her touch transmitted more than physical contact. A resonance between her yellow Dino gem and the corresponding fragment merged with his chakra. The sensation rippled through his energy pathways like sunlight breaking through forest canopy, warming places left cold by dimensional displacement. How do you know that's what I was thinking? He asked. Kira's lips curved into a half smile. I write songs, remember. Understanding what people don't say out loud is part of the job description. She paused, looking out at the awakening town below. Plus, I felt it. When our energies connected, the weight you're carrying. Naruto nodded, unsurprised. Tommy had theorized their energies would develop sympathetic resonance with prolonged exposure. That happens in my world too. Close combat partners develop chakra awareness of each other after fighting together long enough. Makes coordination almost telepathic. Is that what we are now? Combat partners. Something in Kira's tone suggested the question carried layers he couldn't fully decipher. Before he could formulate a response, Tommy's voice called up from below. If you two are done with sunrise meditation, Haley's got breakfast ready, and she's made some modifications to Naruto's communicator that you'll want to see. Hira stood in one fluid motion, musician's grace evident even in this simple action. Coming, drive. Oh, she extended a hand to Naruto. Partner or not, I'm pretty sure pancakes are universal across dimensions. Naruto accepted her hand, the act sending another pulse of resonant energy between them. As they climbed back through the window, he wondered if she felt it too, this growing connection that transcended the merely physical. The readings are fascinating, Haley explained, manipulating holographic displays that hovered above the lab's central table. Images of Naruto's chakra network rotated in 3 dimensions, overlaid the distinctive signature of Dino gem energy. Your biological adaptability exceeds anything we've seen before. Most humans would experience cellular degradation from exposure to interdimensional radiation. But your body is actually incorporating it. Naruto, mouth full of pancake, nodded as though hyper-advanced medical analysis was perfectly normal breakfast conversation. After swallowing, he pointed to a particularly dense cluster of energy near his solar plexus. That's where my seal is, where Kurama is contained. Kurama, Ethan asked, looking up from his laptop where he'd been documenting Naruto's abilities in a database. You mentioned that name before, but never explained. Naruto exchanged glances with Tommy, who nodded encouragingly. They'd discussed how much to share with the team, agreeing that trust required transparency. In my world, there are 9-tailed beasts, massive living constructs of chakra. Kurama is the 9-tailed fox, the strongest of them all. Naruto lifted his shirt, channeling a specific combination of chakra that made the seal visible on his abdomen. When I was born, he was sealed inside me to prevent him from destroying our village. Connor nearly choked on his orange juice. You have a giant fox monster sealed inside you. And you're just mentioning this now. It's not like that, Naruto explained, lowering his shirt. We're partners now. It took years, but we've reached an understanding. His power and mine work together. And this seal, Tommy interjected, having studied the markings with professional interest, it's designed to gradually integrate your energies rather than maintaining strict separation. My father designed it that way, Naruto confirmed, unexpected pride coloring his voice. He knew someday I'd need to master Kurama's power completely. Hira watched him with newfound understanding. That's why you adapt so quickly to the Dino gems. You've spent your whole life integrating with foreign energy. Precisely, Haley agreed, highlighting several areas where chakra and Dino energy flowed together most harmoniously. What would kill an ordinary human is practically routine for your cellular structure. She switched the display to show the modified communicator she'd developed. Which is why this should work. The device resembled the Ranger's standard wrist communicators but incorporated elements that reminded Naruto of chakra-focusing tools from his world. The central medallion featured a spiral pattern reminiscent of his Uzumaki clan symbol superimposed over a dinosaur footprint. It's not just for communication, Haley explained as Naruto strapped it to his wrist. It's a stabilizer for your hybrid energy signature. The Rinnegan's power, combined with the Dino gems, created something unprecedented. This will help you control the output and prevent energy surges that could damage your chakra network. Or alert every interdimensional villain to your location, Tommy added grimly. Kabuto already demonstrated he can track your unique signature. This should help mask it when necessary. Naruto examined the device with appreciation. In my world, it takes months of training to develop this level of chakra control. You built this in 3 days. Haley's smile carried a hint of well-earned pride. I had some help from the residual psychic impressions in the Dino gems. They retain knowledge from every bearer, including information about your chakra system they've absorbed since bonding with you. Speaking of training, Tommy interjected, checking his watch, we should head to the quarry. It's isolated enough for you to practice without causing citywide power outages again. Naruto winced at the reminder. His first attempt at channeling the Rinnegan's almighty pus technique through the Dino gem energy had knocked out electricity to 3 neighborhoods. Sorry about that. Don't worry, Hira said, bumping her shoulder against his companionably. Haley blamed it on dinosaur robots. The citizens of Reefside will believe literally anything at this point. The abandoned quarry stretched before them like a miniature canyon, sheer rock walls rising on sides to create a natural training arena. Tommy's jeep kicked up dust clouds as it navigated the rough access road, finally stopping at a flat area large enough for maneuvers. No civilians for miles, Tommy announced as they disembarked. Perfect place to see what those eyes of yours can really do. Naruto nodded, moving to the center of the open space. The past 3 days had involved careful, restrained testing, small-scale exercises designed to measure output without risking collateral damage. Today would be different. Today, he would unleash the full spectrum of his new abilities. Ready when you are, he called, rolling his shoulders to loosen muscles tense with anticipation. Tommy nodded to his students. Rangers, suit up. Naruto needs moving targets that can take serious punishment. Dino Thunder, power up. Ha! The transformation sequence flashed across the quarry floor, leaving 4 armored rangers in its wake. Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself before activating his own transformation. The process differed from the ranger's instantaneous morphing. His was more fluid, chakra and Dino energy flowing outward from his core, invisible ripples that solidified into his hybrid armor. When he opened his eyes, the concentric circles of the Rinnegan glowed with purple intensity. Let's start with the basics, Tommy directed, the Black Ranger's posture betraying. His years as a martial arts instructor. The Rinnegan grants 6 primary abilities, correct? Let's test each one against ranger attacks to establish baseline measurements. Naruto nodded, appreciating the methodical approach. The 6 paths technique. First is the Diva path, manipulation of attractive and repulsive forces. Connor stepped forward, the Red Ranger's armor gleaming in the morning sun. I'll test that one. My super speed should give me enough momentum to challenge your gravitational control. Without warning, Connor accelerated to superhuman velocity, becoming a crimson blur circling Naruto at disorienting speed. Dust devils formed in his wake, creating a miniature sandstorm around the perimeter. Naruto remained perfectly still, the Rinnegan tracking Connor's movements despite their speed. Then, with a subtle gesture, he activated the Diva path. Almighty push. The repulsive force erupted outward in a perfect circle, catching Connor mid-stride and sending him flying backward. The Red Ranger tumbled through the air but managed to right himself before impact, landing in a 3-point stance that gouged trenches in the quarry floor. Whoa, Connor breathed, his voice modulated through the helmet. That felt like hitting a brick wall at 100 miles per hour. The Dino gem energy amplifies it, Naruto observed, studying how the different energies interacted during the technique. In my world, there's a 5-second cooldown between uses. Here, it's closer to 2 seconds. Tommy made notes on a data pad. Next, Asura path, Naruto replied. Mechanical manipulation and augmentation. Ethan stepped up, the Blue Ranger slamming his fists together to activate his armored skin enhancement. Let's see how your mechanical augmentation compares to my defensive abilities. What happened next astonished even Tommy, who had witnessed numerous Ranger power manifestations throughout his career. Naruto's body partially transformed, segments of his armor reconfiguring into mechanical components that hadn't existed moments before. His right arm split into 3 separate limbs, each ending in a different weapon configuration: blade, cannon, and grappling device. That's not supposed to be possible, Haley's voice came through their communicators. He's manipulating the quantum structure of the armor itself, creating matter from energy. Ethan launched forward, his enhanced durability making him the perfect test subject for Naruto's new weaponry. The two collided in a flurry of strikes, Naruto's mechanized limbs attacking from multiple angles simultaneously while Ethan's armored defense repelled most impacts. The cannon fires concentrated chakra, Naruto explained between exchanges, but the blade incorporates Dino energy for material penetration. To demonstrate, he fired the cannon at a boulder, creating a sizable crater without fragmenting the stone. Then, with a quick slash of the energy blade, he cleaved through another boulder as though it were butter. The halves falling away with perfectly smooth cut surfaces. Incredible control, Tommy commented. Most new Rangers take months to achieve that level of precision. Naruto deactivated the Asura path enhancements, his body returning to its standard configuration. Next is the human path, soul extraction. But I'd rather not demonstrate that one. Agreed, Tommy said quickly. Let's skip to the fourth. Animal path. Summoning creatures linked to my chakra. Naruto formed a series of hand signs, then slammed his palm against the ground. Summoning jutsu. Elaborate seals spread outward from his hand, glowing with purple Rinnegan energy infused with rainbow hues from the Dino gems. The air shimmered as reality distorted to allow passage from another dimension. Where in his world this would have summoned a toad from Mount Myoboku, here something unexpected materialized. A mechanical dinosaur, specifically, a raptor, appeared beside Naruto. Its body combined organic components with technological enhancements, eyes glowing with the same energy that powered the Ranger's Zords. Yet it moved with the intelligence and precision of a summoned ninja animal, immediately deferring to Naruto as its master. That's not what I expected, Naruto admitted, cautiously reaching out to touch the creature. It chirped, nuzzling his hand like an affectionate pet. In my world, I summon toads. The morphing grid is adapting your abilities to this reality, Tommy theorized. Your summoning technique connected to the dormant raptor DNA that powers some of our technologies. Kira approached cautiously, her ranger instincts warring with natural curiosity. The raptor regarded her with intelligent eyes, then chirped again, recognizing the yellow energy signature. That resonated with part of Naruto's power. He likes you, Naruto observed. Probably because of our energy connection. Does he have a name? Kira asked, reaching out slowly to allow the creature to send her hand. Naruto considered the question. Kato. It means ocean, in my language, because his scales have that deep blue sheen. The newly named Kato preened at the recognition display. Ing surprising intelligence as it surveyed its surroundings. Naruto made a dismissal gesture, and the raptor disappeared in a puff of smoke, returning to whatever pocket dimension housed summoned creatures in this world. Fifth path, Tommy prompted, fascinated by the demonstration. Preda path. Energy absorption. Naruto turned to Kira. This one requires an energy attack to demonstrate. Kira nodded, stepping back to create distance. Terra's scream coming your way. Try not to absorb too much. I'd hate to explain to Doctor. Oh, why you exploded. Her helmet retracted around the mouth area, allowing her to unleash the sonic attack that was her special ability. The concentrated sound waves rippled the air as they sped toward Naruto, carrying destructive force that could shatter concrete. Naruto extended one hand, the Rinnegan flaring as he activated the Preda path. Instead of creating a barrier, his technique absorbed the sonic energy directly, converting it into additional chakra that circulated through his system. The attack disappeared entirely, leaving not even an echo. That feels different, he noted, processing the converted energy. Sound-based chakra has unique properties. Final path, Tommy said, maintaining their methodical progression. Naraka path, interrogation and restoration. Naruto hesitated. This one's complicated. It summons the king of hell to extract information or restore bodies. Maybe we save the demonic summoning for a day when we're not already dealing with interdimensional threats, Connor suggested, only half joking. Agreed, Tommy replied, finishing his notes. What about the outer path? The ability to control life and death. Naruto's expression grew serious. That's the most dangerous aspect of the Rinnegan. It allows the user to revive the dead at the cost of their own life, or to bind souls to prepared vessels, like Kabuto did with Danzo. But theoretically, Haley's voice came through the communicator again, it gives you control over the boundary between life and death, which may explain your ability to stabilize the dimensional boundaries. Different applications of the same fundamental power. Further discussion was interrupted by the communicator's alert tone. Tommy activated the holographic display, showing a map of Reefside with multiple flashing points. Dimensional disturbances, he explained grimly. 3 separate locations simultaneously. Kabuto isn't wasting time. Naruto studied the map, the Rinnegan allowing him to perceive energy patterns invisible to normal sight. They're not random. They're forming a triangulation pattern, using the dimensional weak points to create a larger stable portal. We need to split up, Tommy decided immediately. Connor and Ethan, take the harbor disturbance. Kira and Naruto, the downtown nexus. I'll handle the forest anomaly. Alone, Ethan questioned. Doctor. Oh, If Kabuto shows up. I've been a ranger longer than all of you combined, Tommy reminded him. With the confidence of a veteran warrior. I can handle myself until backup arrives. The team dispersed quickly, Kira and Naruto heading for Tommy's jeep while Connor and Ethan took Connor's car. Before they separated, Tommy pulled Naruto aside for a private word. Your connection with Kira is growing stronger, he observed, voice low enough that only Naruto could hear. The resonance between our energies is creating a feedback loop that enhances both your abilities. I've noticed, Naruto admitted. It feels like chakra synchronization with a perfect battle partner, Tommy finished, surprising Naruto with his insight. I've experienced similar connections during my ranger career. Just be careful, those bonds can become complicated. Something in Tommy's tone suggested personal experience beyond professional observation. Before Naruto could inquire further, the Black Ranger was gone, racing toward his motorcycle. Downtown Reefside resembled a scene from a surrealist painting. The dimensional disturbance manifested as localized reality warps, fire hydrants spewing multicolored liquids that defied gravity, street lamps bending like rubber, pedestrians moving bizarre slow-motion bubbles while car horns stretched into otherworldly wails. Kira parked the jeep at the perimeter of the affected area, both of them surveying the chaos from relative safety. Please tell me you can fix this, she said, morphing into her ranger form with a practiced motion. I can stabilize it temporarily, Naruto confirmed, activating his own transformation. The Rinnegan immediately identified the fracture patterns in local spacetime. But Kabuto's getting better at manipulating the dimensional boundaries. These distortions are more sophisticated than before. They advanced cautiously into the affected zone, moving through reality distortions that made each step unpredictable. Near the center of the anomaly, they found its source, a crystalline device embedded in the pavement, pulsing with sickly green energy that matched Kabuto's dimensional portals. Some kind of automated generator, Naruto observed, kneeling to examine it without touching the surface. It's drawing energy from the boundary between dimensions to create these localized warps. Can you shut it down? Kira asked, maintaining defensive position around him, her Terra grips ready for combat. Better. Naruto's hands formed a complex sequence of signs, combining traditional ninja techniques with instinctive knowledge granted by the Rinnegan. I can reverse it, use its own mechanism to seal the breach. As Naruto worked, the distortion intensified around them. Traffic signals began speaking in human voices, reciting mathematical equations in languages that hadn't existed for millennia. The asphalt beneath their feet softened into something resembling black quicksand, forcing Kira to use her ranger agility to stay mobile. Whatever you're doing, do it faster, she urged, narrowly, avoiding a mailbox that had sprouted tentacles and lunged at her ankles. Almost there, Naruto assured her, the Rinnegan's concentric circles spinning as he manipulated the dimensional energies. His technology incorporates elements from my world. Chakra conductors merged with something like your morphing grid interfaces. A familiar laugh interrupted his concentration, high and cold, with the clinical detachment of a scientist observing an experiment. Very astute, Naruto-kun. Your perceptive abilities have improved significantly since our last encounter. Kabuto emerged from behind a reality distortion, the air around him shimmering like heat mirage. His appearance had evolved further. Scales now covered approximately 60% of his visible skin, and his eyes had developed vertical pupils reminiscent of Orochimaru's snake-like transformations. Most disturbing were the modifications that clearly originated in this dimension. Circuitry embedded beneath translucent scales, pulsing with the same energy that powered Mesogog's technology. Kabuto, Naruto acknowledged, continuing his work on the device even as he divided his attention. I see you've made yourself at home in this dimension. Adaptation is survival, Kabuto replied, adjusting his glasses with one clawed finger. This world's genetic science is primitive but fascinating. Their dinosaur DNA manipulation techniques complement my own research beautifully. Kira positioned herself between Kabuto and Naruto. Whatever you're planning stops now. You're destabilizing the entire city with these experiments. Kabuto regarded her with the detached interest of an entomologist examining a particularly colorful insect. Yellow Ranger. Kira Ford. Pterodactyl affinity, sonic manipulation abilities, musically inclined with rebellious tendencies and abandonment issues stemming from parental neglect. Kira flinched beneath her helmet. How do you know all that? Information is currency across all dimensions, Kabuto explained, circling them with predatory patience. Lord Mesogog provided extensive files on all Rangers, past and present. Your psychological profiles are particularly illuminating. Naruto's hands completed the final sequence. Dimensional reversal technique. The crystalline device pulsed once, twice, then inverted its energy flow, sucking the reality distortions back into itself like a cosmic vacuum cleaner. Street lamps straightened, fire hydrants returned to normal function, and the laws of physics reasserted themselves across the affected area. Kabuto observed this with scientific fascination rather than disappointment. Impressive adaptation of the Rinnegan's abilities. You've integrated the dimensional aspects more quickly than my models predicted. Why are you doing this, Kabuto? Naruto demanded, rising to stand beside Kira. What could you possibly gain from destabilizing two worlds? Destabilization is merely a side effect, not the goal, Kabuto corrected. His tone suggesting he was explaining basic concepts to a slow student. These temporary breaches provide valuable data on interdimensional constants, information essential for the next phase. Which is? Kira pressed, Terra grip still at ready position. Kabuto smiled, the expression unsettling on his increasingly inhuman features. Selective permeability. A stable pathway that allows specific entities to cross between dimensions while maintaining boundary integrity for everything else. The implications chilled Naruto to his core. You want to bring something specific from my world to this one. Or someone, Kabuto amended. Imagine certain individuals from our world with access to morphing grid energy. Imagine Ranger technology enhanced by chakra theory. The applications are revolutionary. You're talking about Madara, Naruto realized, the Rinnegan flaring brighter with his heightened emotion. You want to bring him here, where no one understands his abilities or how to counter them. Kabuto neither confirmed nor denied this, his silence more telling than any declaration. Your presence here was unexpected, Naruto-kun. A variable I hadn't calculated. But adaptability is the cornerstone of scientific progress. Without warning, he struck, not at Naruto, as expected, but at Kira. His transformed arm extended like a serpent, crossing the distance between them faster than human reflexes could track. Only Ranger enhancements allowed Kira to partially evade, the strike grazing her side instead of piercing her chest as intended. Naruto reacted instantaneously, the Eva path activating without conscious thought. Almighty push. The gravitational repulsion slammed into Kabuto with concentrated force, sending him crashing through the window of an abandoned storefront. Glass shattered around him as he disappeared into the darkened interior. Kira, Naruto was at her side immediately, supporting her as she clutched her injured ribs. How bad? I'll live, she assured him, voice tight with pain despite the Ranger suit's protective properties. But that wasn't a normal attack. Something's wrong with my morphing energy where he hit me. Naruto examined the injury with the Rinnegan, identifying a disturbing anomaly. He's developed a technique that disrupts the connection between your body and the morphing grid. It's like chakra poison from my world, BU. Chi specifically targeted at Ranger powers. Before he could attempt healing, Kabuto emerged from the shattered storefront, his body moving with unnatural fluidity as broken bones visibly realigned beneath his skin. Accelerated healing, he explained casually, brushing glass shards from his clothing. Combined reptilian regeneration with Zetsu cellular properties and enhancement from this world's technology. Quite effective, wouldn't you agree? Naruto created 3 shadow clones that immediately took defensive positions around Kira. What do you want, Kabuto? Really, not the scientific explanation, not the strategy, the true motivation. Something flickered across Kabuto's face, a momentary crack in his clinical facade. Understanding. I've spent my entire existence as a footnote in other people's stories. Orphan, spy, subordinate. Here, between worlds, I can finally write my own narrative, become something unprecedented in the history of either dimension. By helping Mesogog destroy humanity. Kira challenged, struggling to her feet despite Naruto's protective gesture. Dinosaurs ruled this planet for 165 million years, Kabuto replied. Humans have mana. G'd a mere 200,000 and have nearly destroyed it multiple times. From an evolutionary perspective, Mesogog's vision has merit. And where do you fit in this dinosaur utopia? Naruto pressed. Kabuto's smile returned, colder than before. Every new order needs architects. Those who understand both what was and what could be. He formed hand signs Naruto didn't recognize, a hybrid tech. Neat combining ninja arts with something distinctly foreign. Dimensional style. Boundary collapse. The air between them fractured, reality itself splitting along invisible seams. Through the widening cracks, Naruto glimpsed fragments of his home dimension, flashes of the battlefield he'd left behind, faces contorted in combat, explosions illuminating war-torn landscapes. No, Naruto channeled chakra through the Rinnegan, attempting to counter the technique. You'll destroy both worlds if you force a convergence point here. Not destruction, Kabuto corrected, maintaining the jutsu with visible strain. Controlled integration, a preview of coming attractions, if you will. Through the dimensional fractures emerged three figures that made Naruto's blood run cold, white Zetsu clones, Air plant-based bodies already incorporating elements of this dimension's technology. Circuitry pulsed beneath their pale artificial flesh, and their eyes glowed with the same energy that powered Mesogog's creations. Improved shock troops, Kabuto explained as the Zetsus took position around him. The original white Zetsu army enhanced with Tyrannodrome DNA and cybernetic augmentation. Less KRA intensive to produce and more adaptable to this dimension's physical constants. The Zetsus attacked in perfect unison, their movements displaying a fluidity the originals had lacked. Naruto engaged immediately, the Rinnegan tracking their energy patterns as he countered with precision strikes. His shadow clones protected Kira, who fought despite her injury, her Terra grips slicing through plant-based flesh of the nearest Zetsu. Their cellular structure is different from the originals, Naruto called out, noticing how the severed portions regenerated more quickly. Fire or sound-based attacks will be more effective. Kira immediately adjusted her strategy, channeling her sonic powers through her weapons. The frequency shattered the molecular bonds of the Zetsu's hybrid structure, preventing regeneration. While they fought, Kabuto maintained the dimensional rift, which continued to widen despite Naruto's efforts to contain it. Through the fracture, more disturbing glimpses of the fourth grade ninja war filtered through, and worse, beings on the other side seemed increasingly aware of the opening. Naruto, a familiar voice called through the rift. Sakura, her face brieful. Why visible through the dimensional static? Is that really you, Sakura? Naruto redoubled his efforts to stabilize the boundary, torn between joy at seeing his friend and terror at the potential consequences of an uncontrolled breach. Don't come through. The dimensional balance is too fragile. Fascinating, Kabuto observed, adjusting his technique. The connection between dimensions is stronger where emotional bonds exist. Your presence creates natural bridge points. Sakura's image distorted and vanished as the rift fluctuated wildly. In her place appeared a nightmarish vision, the partially transformed Ten Tails. Its massive eye fixing on the dimensional opening with eldritch awareness. That's enough. Naruto channeled unprecedented power through the Rinnegan, combining all 6 paths simultaneously. Planetary sealing technique. The concentric circles projected outward from his eyes, expanding to encompass the entire rift. Where they touched the dimensional fractures, reality re-knit itself. Forced back into proper alignment by the Rinnegan's fundamental control over universal constants. Kabuto struggled to maintain his jutsu against this onslaught, but even his enhanced abilities couldn't match the Rinnegan at full power. The rift collapsed with a thunderous implosion, the air rushing to fill the void left by its closure. The backlash sent everyone flying in different directions. Naruto managed to catch Kira mid-air, cushioning their landing with chakra control. When the dust settled, Kabuto and his remaining Zetsu clone were gone, escaped through a smaller portal that had opened during the chaos. Are you okay? Naruto asked Kira, helping her to her feet. Define, okay, she replied, her ranger transformation flickering unstably around her injury. I just saw a glimpse of your world. And honestly, I'm not sure how you maintained your sanity growing up there. Despite the gravity of the situation, Naruto found himself laughing, a short, surprised so. That felt foreign after so much tension. It has its moments. Not all of it is giant monsters and world-ending threats. Just most of it. Kira quipped, her humor intact despite her pain. Their communicators activated simultaneously. Naruto, Kira, Tommy's voice came through, tension evident even through the digital connection. Status report. Dimensional rift contained, Naruto replied. Kabuto escaped, but we prevented a full breach. Kira's injured. He used some kind of chakra technique that disrupts morphing grid connections. Get back to the lab immediately, Tommy ordered. And be careful, we've got another complication. What kind of complication? Kira asked, leaning against Naruto as they made their way back toward the jeep. Tommy's response was cryptically brief. The temporal kind. Just get here. The lab beneath Tommy's house had gained an additional occupant during their absence. A woman in her late 20s with short brown hair and determined features stood beside the central console, studying the dimensional readings with professional intensity. Her uniform was unlike anything Naruto had seen in this world, sleek silver and pink with technological components that appeared more advanced than current Ranger equipment. She turned as they entered, her gaze immediately locking onto Naruto with laser focus. Subject confirmed. Dimensional anomaly designation. Uzumaki, Naruto. Temporal impact. Severity Class 4. Naruto, Kira, Tommy introduced formally, this is Jen Scott's, Pink Time Force Ranger from the year 3000. Time Force, Kira questioned, carefully lowering herself onto an examination table as Haley began treating her injury. As in time travel. Precisely, Jen confirmed, her posture military precise. I'm an officer with Time Force, tasked with maintaining proper temporal flow and preventing paradoxes that threaten the established timeline. And I'm guessing my unexpected dimensional cannonball qualifies as a threat. Naruto deduced, the Rinnegan fading as he powered down to conserve energy. Your presence here has created ripple effects across multiple timelines, Jen explained, activating a holographic display from a device on her wrist. The projection showed a complex web of timeline branches, with several pulsing red warning indicators. The merger of ninja chakra with morphing grid energy creates a previously unknown power signature that affects reality on a fundamental level. Connor and Ethan arrived during this explanation, both looking battle-worn but uninjured. Our dimensional disruption was a decoy, Connor reported. Automated generator creating distortions, but no sign of Kabuto or any actual breach attempt. Same at my location, Tommy confirmed. He focused his real effort downtown. Classic misdirection, Ethan added. Split our forces to reduce resistance at his primary target. Naruto approached the timeline display, studying the patterns with newfound perception. Even without the Rinnegan active, he could recognize disturbing implications in the data. These red points, he noted, pointing to particularly bright nodes where multiple timelines intersected. There, convergence events, moments where my world and yours are at maximum dimensional proximity. Jen looked surprised, then impressed. Correct, your dimensional displacement wasn't random. It occurred during a natural convergence point between your reality and ours, a moment when the membrane between worlds was already thin. And these future convergence points, Naruto continued, indicating a series of pulsing indicators further along the timeline, they're growing stronger and more frequent. That's the problem, Jen confirmed grimly. Your crossing has weakened the dimensional boundaries. Subsequent convergence becomes easier than the last. If this progression continues unchecked, both dimensions could collapse into each other within months. The implications silenced everyone momentarily. Two entire realities, with all their inhabitants, facing extinction through uncontrolled merger. Can't you just send Naruto back? Connor suggested, breaking the heavy silence. No offense, man, but if your being here is causing dimension-ending problems, it's not that simple, Tommy and Jen said simultaneously, exchanging surprised glances at their synchronicity. Jen continued, the dimensional integration has already progressed too far. Naruto's physical structure has partially merged with this reality's fundamental constants. Attempting to forcibly return him would lickle. Why accelerate the collapse rather than prevent it? Plus, Haley added from where she was treating Kira, his energy signature appears to be having a stabilizing effect on the localized distortions. When he sealed the downtown breach, the dimensional constants actually strengthened in that area. My presence is both the problem and potentially part of the solution, Naruto summarized, processing this paradoxical situation. Precisely, Jen agreed, which is why Time Force sent me to establish contact rather than simply attempting temporal correction. Tommy leaned against the console, Ms. crossed in his characteristic thinking posture. Kabuto obviously understands some of this. His experiments aren't random. He's systematically testing the dimensional boundaries, looking for specific resonance patterns. The question is why, Naruto mused. He mentioned selective permeability, creating stable pathways for specific entities while maintaining boundary integrity. The most dangerous kind of dimensional manipulation. Jen confirmed, her expression hardening. Controlled breaches that allow targeted individuals or technologies to cross while preventing wholesale collapse. It reserves both dimensions while allowing unprecedented power concentration. He wants to cherry-pick the most dangerous elements from both worlds, Kira realized, wincing as Haley applied regenerative technology to her wound. Combine the worst threats from the ninja world with the worst from ours. Naruto's mind raced through possibilities, analyzing Kabuto's potential strategy. In my world, Kabuto was working with Madara Uchiha and the Akatsuki organization. If he could bring them here, give them access to morphing grid energy, while sending dinosaur DNA and ranger technology back to empower their forces there. Tommy finished the thought, a coordinated attack across dimensions. This confirms our worst-case analysis, Jen said, manipulating her timeline display to show a specific convergence point 2 weeks in the future. Time Force predictive models indicate a major attempt will occur during this upcoming natural convergence. If Kabuto succeeds in establishing controlled permeability during that window, the damage to the timeline becomes irreversible. So we have 2 weeks to prepare, Ethan summarized. To master whatever interdimensional ninja ranger powers we have and stop Kabuto from basically ending reality as we know it. No pressure. Naruto's gaze met Kira's across the room, the connection between them pulsing with shared purpose despite the physical distance. Then he turned to Jen, studying her with newfound interest. Something about her energy signature resonated differently with his chakra, not the same harmonization he experienced with Kira, a distinct compatibility that suggested potential synchronization. You'll need to stay, he said to Jen, the statement more observation than request. Your temporal energy signature has properties that might help stabilize the dimensional boundaries during convergence events. Jen raised an eyebrow, impressed again by his perceptiveness. That was my assignment. Time Force has authorized NDED temporal deployment to address this crisis. Then we should begin training immediately, Tommy decided, his natural leadership asserting itself even in this unprecedented situation. Naruto DS to fully master the Rinnegan's dimensional aspects, and we need to develop countermeasures for Kabuto's hybrid threats. As the group dispersed to begin preparations, Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Jen. The Time Force officer regarded him with professional assessment that couldn't quite mask personal curiosity. Your file was incomplete, she admitted, her formal tone softening slightly. Time Force records mention your arrival as a pivotal Nexus event, but details of your abilities and personal history were corrupted in the temporal database. Time travel complications, Naruto guessed. Partially, Jen acknowledged, but also intentional redaction. Someone in the future deliberately removed specific information about you from official records. This revelation surprised Naruto. Why would anyone do that? Protection, perhaps, Jen suggested. Or prevention of paradox. The fact that someone considered your information sensitive enough to warrant high-level temporal security clearance is interesting. Before Naruto could respond, a gentle pulse of energy from his chakra network drew his attention. The yellow Dino gem fragment resonating with Kira seemed to communicate wordless concern. She was calling for him, even if she hadn't verbalized it. Excuse me, he said to Jen, who nodded understanding despite not being aware of the energy communication. I should check on Kira. As he moved toward the medical area, Naruto felt another strange resonance, this time from the pink energy signature that corresponded to Jen's ranger power. Unlike the established connection with Kira, this was merely potential, a compatibility not yet developed but distinctly possible. The complexity of these new relationships, both energetic and personal, added another Layer to an already overwhelming situation. 2 weeks to master unprecedented powers and save 2 dimensions from collapse. And in the midst of it all, these strange new bonds forming with people he barely knew but who somehow felt increasingly important. Naruto found Kira sitting up on the examination table, Haley having completed the regenerative treatment. The Yellow Ranger looked pale but determined, her natural resilience evident in the set of her jaw. "How are you feeling?" he asked, settling beside her. "Like I got hit by an interdimensional snake man," she replied dryly. "But the weird energy disruption is fading. Haley thinks your chakra actually protected me from the worst of it. Apparently some of it transferred to me during our previous battles." Naruto nodded, unsurprised. "Chakra sharing happens naturally between compatible partners in my world. The more we fight together, the more our energies harmonize. Is that what's happening with us?" Kira asked directly, her perceptiveness cutting through potential ambiguity. "This connection I can feel. It's getting stronger, isn't it?" "Yes," Naruto admitted. "The yellow Dino gem fragment in my chakra system resonates. Specifically with your energy signature. It creates a natural bond that enhances both our abilities when we're in proximity. And that's all it is. A power boost." Something in Kira's tone suggested she suspected there was more to it. Naruto hesitated, considering how to explain concepts that were intuitively understood in his world but might seem alien here. "In my experience, chakra doesn't make connections that don't already have potential. Energy follows intention and emotion, not just tactical advantage. So what you're saying is," Kira ventured, meeting his gaze directly, "if we didn't already have some kind of natural affinity for each other as people, the energy connection wouldn't be forming in the first place." "Exactly," Naruto confirmed, impressed by her quick understanding. "The power recognizes something that might have taken us much longer to discover otherwise." A small smile curved Kira's lips. "Well, that's one advantage of interdimensional chaos, I guess. Cuts through the usual, getting to know you, phase." Naruto returned the smile, feeling momentary lightness despite the gravity of their situation. "In my world, it's not unusual for shinobi to form deep bonds quickly. Our lives are constantly in danger. We don't have the luxury of slow relationship development. We have 2 weeks until the convergence point Gen identified," Kira noted, sliding off the examination table to stand beside him. "That doesn't leave much time for conventional dating either." The casual reference to dating caught Naruto off guard, a faint flush coloring his cheeks. Relationships in his world had always been complicated by his status as Jinchuriki and the constant demands of ninja life. Here, amid interdimensional crisis and power fusions, romance seemed simultaneously more complicated and somehow simpler. "I guess we'll have to make the most of whatever time we have," he replied, surprised by his own boldness. Kira's response was interrupted by Tommy calling everyone back to the main lab area. As they rejoined the group, Naruto noticed Gen watching their interaction with analytical interest, her expression suggesting she was documenting observations for some future report. "We need to establish a training regimen," Tommy announced, displaying a schedule on the main screen. "Naruto, you'll work with each of us individually to develop specialized techniques that combine your abilities with ours. Starting with Kira, since your energies already show natural synchronization. After that, I'd like to work with you on temporal stability techniques," Gen added. Addressing Naruto directly, Time Force has developed methods for strengthening dimensional boundaries during timeline fluctuations. Combined with your Rinnegan abilities, we might be able to create a more permanent solution. Quote, "Meanwhile," Haley continued, "I'll analyze the crystalline device you recovered from downtown. Understanding Kabuto's technology could help us develop countermeasures. And I'll compile everything we know about dimensional convergence points from Ranger history," Ethan offered, already typing rapidly on his laptop. "There might be precedents we can learn from." "What about me?" Connor asked, characteristic impatience surfacing. "Reconnaissance," Tommy assigned. "Your speed makes you ideal for regular perimeter checks. If Kabuto attempts another breach, we need early warning." As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Naruto felt simultaneous weight and purpose settle across his shoulders. 2 weeks to master powers beyond anything either world had seen individually. 2 weeks to prevent catastrophic dimensional collapse. 2 weeks to determine if these new bonds, particularly with Kira, whose energy sang to his in harmonious resonance. CE could withstand the pressures of an interdimensional crisis. For a moment, homesickness threatened to overwhelm him, memories of Konoha, his friends, the familiar challenges of his own world. But as he watched his new teammates prepare for the coming conflict, determination replaced melancholy. Whatever happened, whether he eventually found a way home or remained in this dimension permanently, he would protect these people who had accepted him without hesitation. The Rinnegan pulsed gently behind his eyes, reminding him of powers still untapped, potential yet unrealized. Whatever Kabuto was planning, whatever forces gathered on both sides of the dimensional divide, Naruto Uzumaki, ninja of the hidden leaf and now something more, would stand as guardian between worlds. "Let's begin," he said simply, and stepped forward to meet his destiny. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Timelines Entangled. Silver rain pelted the reinforced windows of the Time Force transport vehicle as it hummed along the coastal highway toward Silver Hills. Naruto pressed his forehead against the cool glass, watching lightning splinter the gunmetal sky into jagged fragments. The storm had appeared suddenly, unnaturally, as they crossed the county line. Another symptom of the increasing dimensional instability. Temporal displacement storms, Jen explained from the driver's seat, her voice clinically precise as she navigated the treacherous conditions. Weather patterns from different points in the timeline overlapping and merging. This particular system shouldn't exist for another 70 years. Naruto nodded, fascinated despite the ominous implications. In my world, we have jutsu that can manipulate weather, but nothing that pulls it from different time periods. The past week had been a blur of intensive training, information exchange, and increasingly worrying dimensional breaches. After Kabuto's coordinated attack on Reefside, Jen had received orders from Time Force headquarters to bring Naruto to Silver Hills, where her team had established a forward base to monitor the temporal aspects of the crisis. Kira had argued against their separation, logically citing the established resonance between her yellow Dino energy and Naruto's corresponding chakra signature. But even she couldn't deny the readings Haley had presented, showing how Naruto's Rinnegan responded to Jen's temporal stabilizers with unprecedented compatibility. The convergence is accelerating, Naruto observed, the Rinnegan activating briefly to scan the storm's energy patterns. Through its enhanced perception, he old sea time itself fracturing around the weather system, moments from past, present, and future bleeding together like watercolors on wet paper. 7 days until the primary event, but we're already seeing effects that weren't projected to manifest until much closer to 0 hour. Jen's hands tightened on the steering wheel, the only outward sign of her concern. Time Force models didn't account for Kabuto's experiments amplifying the natural instability. He's deliberately exacerbating the convergence while simultaneously working to control it, an incredibly dangerous approach. It's his specialty, Naruto replied grimly. Kabuto's always been willing to destabilize everything around him if it gives him an advantage. In my world, he nearly collapsed the entire Shinobi Alliance just to create chaos he could exploit. Lightning cracked directly overhead, momentarily bathing the vehicle's interior in stark electric blue. In that frozen moment, Naruto caught a glimpse of Jen's face, the disciplined Time Force officer's mask briefly falling to reveal genuine worry beneath. It humanized her in a way their professional interactions hadn't, reminding him that beneath her formal exterior beat a heart as concerned for her world as he was for his. "We're almost there," she announced as the storm began to subside, unnatural weather giving way to the natural variety as they approached their destination. The clock tower has been retrofitted with temporal shielding that should minimize dimensional bleed-through. Naruto nodded, his thoughts drifting back to Reefside, to Kira, whose absence he felt like a phantom limb. Their energies had grown increasingly synchronized during training sessions, creating combat harmony that Tommy had described as unprecedented in Ranger history. The separation, though strategically necessary, left an ache he hadn't anticipated. "You're thinking about her," Jen observed, surprising him with her perceptiveness. When he turned, one eyebrow raised in question, she smiled slightly. "Your energy signature fluctuates in a distinctive pattern when you focus on your connection to the Yellow Ranger. Time Force officers are trained to recognize micro changes in temporal energy interactions." Heat rose to Naruto's cheeks. "Is it that obvious?" Only to someone monitoring quantum energy patterns, Jen assured him, her tone softening. If it helps, the connection works both ways. When we contacted the Dino Thunder team earlier, the instruments detected similar fluctuations in Kira's energy signature. Something about this scientific confirmation of their bond comforted Naruto, easing the hollow feeling in his chest. In his world, such connections were accepted as natural aspects of chakra harmonization between compatible individuals. Here, everything required measurement, documentation, explanation, an approach both frustratingly methodical and reassuringly concrete. The vehicle crested a final hill, revealing Silver Hill's spread below them, a city of gleaming buildings surrounded by forested mountains. Unlike Reefside's smaller town atmosphere, Silver Hills projected metropolitan confidence, its architecture suggesting money and influence. At its center stood their destination, the historic clock tower, its 19th-century facade concealing technology centuries ahead of its time. Home base, Jen announced as she navigated toward the tower. The original Time Force headquarters in this era, now upgraded with temporal reinforcement to serve as our primary monitoring station. Naruto studied the structure with the Rinnegan, observing layers of energy fields invisible to normal perception. The shielding, it's similar to space-time barriers from my world, but more precisely calibrated. Your visual acuity continues to impress, Jen noted, pulling into a concealed garage beneath the tower. Most temporal technicians require specialized equipment to perceive those fields. The garage door sealed behind them with a pneumatic hiss, pressure equalizing as temporal containment protocols activated. Naruto felt the difference immediately, a cessation of the subtle dimensional pressure that had become his constant companion since arriving in this world. Within these shielded walls, reality felt solid, unambiguous, properly anchored to its foundational constants. The relief you're experiencing is normal, Jen explained as they exited the vehicle. The containment field creates a pocket of temporal dimensional stability, essentially a perfect reference point of how realities should feel without convergence interference. Naruto took a deep, centering breath. It's like stepping out of a sandstorm into a clean room. 3 figures approached from across the garage, all wearing modified versions of civilly and clothes that incorporated subtle Time Force design elements. Naruto recognized them from the files Jen had shared during their journey. Lucas Kendall, Trip Regis, and Katie Walker, the blue, green, and yellow Time Force Rangers. Welcome to 2025, Lucas greeted, extending a hand to Naruto. The Blue Ranger's classically handsome features arranged themselves in a professional smile that didn't quite reach his calculating eyes. Though I guess for you, interdimensional displacement probably makes time travel seem almost mundane. Lucas, Jen admonished quietly. It's fine, Naruto assured her, accepting Lucas's handshake with a firm grip. And honestly, nothing about this situation feels mundane. I'm still adjusting to indoor plumbing and electronic music. Time travel is just another layer of strange. Katie stepped forward next, her powerful build contrasting with the genuine warmth in her expression. I'm Katie. Don't mind Lucas, he's still processing the fact that our carefully PPED timeline now has interdimensional complications. She shook Naruto's hand with carefully restrained strength that nevertheless suggested tremendous power. It's amazing to finally meet you. Your energy signature has been lighting up our monitors for weeks. Which makes you basically a celebrity around here, Trip added, the green-haired Zybrian's forehead gem glinting under the garage lights. His open, curious expression reflected none of Lucas's reservation. The quantum chakra interaction patterns you generate are unlike anything in our historical database. Trip, Lucas cautioned, maybe save the scientific fanboying for after we've shown our guest the actual crisis. Jen took charge with practiced efficiency. We should proceed to the command center. The latest convergence projections just arrived from the future. And they're concerning. The Rangers led Naruto into an elevator concealed behind what appeared to be an ordinary maintenance door. Inside, Jen placed her hand on a scanner that responded with a soft blue glow. Temporal Officer Jennifer Scotts recognized, announced a computerized voice. Access granted to secure levels. The elevator descended smoothly, passing levels that Naruto's enhanced senses identified as heavily shielded. When the doors finally opened, they revealed a command center that made Tommy's advanced laboratory look primitive by comparison. Holographic displays filled the air with three-dimensional data models. Temporal energy flowed through transparent conduits like luminous blood through veins, and workstations staffed by CUSED technicians monitored aspects of time and space with instruments beyond his comprehension. At the center of it all stood a distinguished older man with silver-streaked hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. He turned as they entered, his expression grave but welcoming. "Naruto Uzumaki," he greeted, extending his hand. "I'm Captain Logan, Temporal Oversight Division. Welco. Meet a Time Forces Forward Operating Base." Naruto accepted the handshake, instinctively recognizing a commander worthy of respect. "Thank you for your hospitality, Captain. I understand I've complicated your timeline considerably." A ghost of a smile touched Logan's features. "That would be an understatement. But Time Force exists precisely because reality rarely cooperates with orderly predictions." He gestured toward the main display, where a complex web of intersecting lines represented timeline branches. "Perhaps you can help us make sense of what we're seeing." The display shifted to focus on a particular nexus point, the approaching convergence event that had prompted their journey to Silver Hills. Unlike previous models Naruto had seen, this one included new elements, crystalline structures forming along the boundaries between dimensions, creating what appeared to be engineered pathways rather than random breaches. Kabuto's work, Naruto recognized immediately, the Rinnegan, activating to better analyze the patterns. He's not just studying the convergence anymore, he's actively shaping it, creating controlled apertures at specific coordinates. "Precisely," Logan confirmed. "Our future analysts identified 27 distinct manipulation points across both time and space, each corresponding to a location with significant historical or energetic importance." Tripp approached the display, highlighting one particular structure with a gesture. "This one manifested yesterday, Silver Hills Park, precisely where the original Time Force headquarters once stood in the year 3000. And this one," Katie added, indicating another point, "appeared at the exact coordinates where the Quantum Ranger first bonded with his morpher." "He's targeting locations with existing temporal significance," Jen concluded. "Places where the fabric of time has already experienced stress or manipulation." Naruto studied the pattern with growing concern, recognizing an unsettling elegance behind the seemingly random distribution. "In my world, there's a technique called the 5-point unseal that can break even the most powerful containment jutsu by targeting specific weak points in sequence." He traced lines connecting several of the highlighted locations. "This isn't random, it's methodical. He's creating a massive unsealing array using your world's temporal weak points as anchor positions." The Rangers exchanged alarmed glances, the implications sinking in. "If he succeeds," Lucas began, "he gains controlled access to multiple points in both space and time," Logan finished grimly. "The ability to selectively extract elements from your dimension while introducing components from ours. A catastrophe beyond measure." Jen turned to Naruto, professional assessment giving way to genuine urgency. "We need to investigate these manipulation points directly. Sensor data can only tell us so much, we need eyes on the ground." "I concur," Logan decided. "Jen, take Naruto to the Silver Hills Park location. Lucas and Tripp, the Quantum Ranger convergence point. Katie, remain here to coordinate our response to any new manifestations." "Sir," Jen acknowledged with military precision, then turned to Naruto. "We should prepare. The temporal distortions around these sites can have unpredictable effects on both technology and biology." As the team dispersed to their assignments, Naruto found himself walking alongside Jen toward an equipment room. The Pink Ranger moved with disciplined efficiency, each step purposeful without wasted motion, so different from Kira's rebellious grace or the casual confidence of his friends back home. "You don't have to maintain the formal facade around me," he said quietly as they entered the empty equipment room. "I can see it takes effort." Jen paused, surprise flickering across her features before her composure reasserted itself. "I don't know what you mean." "The military bearing, the precise speech patterns, the emotional distance," Naruto elaborated. "Selecting a reinforced jacket from a rack of specialized gear. They're not your natural state, they're armor you've built around yourself." For a moment, he thought he might deny it or deflect with professional redirection. Instead, her shoulders relaxed fractionally, the rigid posture softening into something more natural. Time Force officers are trained to maintain emotional equilibrium, she admitted, reaching for specialized equipment with practiced movements. Particularly temporal specialists. When you regularly interact with alternate timelines where loved ones live or die based on your decisions, distance becomes a survival mechanism. The personal revelation, however small, felt significant coming from someone so carefully controlled. Naruto recognized the courage it took to lower defenses, even momentarily. In my world, he offered in exchange, shinobi are taught to suppress emotion during missions. The most respected ninjas were those who became living weapons, perfect tools without personal feelings or attachments. He fastened the specialized equipment vest, adjusting it to fit his frame. I never managed it. My teachers always said I felt too much, cared too deeply. Quote, and yet you survived, Jen observed, her voice softening. Perhaps even thrived because of it. I did, Naruto agreed, meeting her gaze directly. Bonds others gave me strength when my own wasn't enough. Connection, not isolation, saved me countless times. Something shifted in Jen's expression, a subtle reassessment, as though viewing him through a different lens. Time Force Psychology Division would find you fascinating. Their models suggest temporal operatives function optimally with emotional detachment. Maybe your future has it backwards, Naruto suggested. Maybe feeling deeply while doing difficult things isn't a weakness but the only way to stay human through impossible choices. The conversation paused as they finished equipping themselves with temporal stabilizers, scanner units, and communications devices. As Jen activated her morpher, a more advanced model than those used by the Dino Thunder team, she cast Naruto a sidelong glance. Your file mentioned you change people, she said quietly. That individuals around you tend to revise their fundamental assumptions after prolonged exposure. I assumed it was hyperbole. Naruto smiled, the expression warming features hardened by war and displacement. I just speak my truth. People decide for themselves whether to listen. Silver Hills Park sprawled across the acres of manicured greenery punctuated by ancient oak trees and ornamental gardens. Under normal circumstances, it would have been filled with visitors enjoying the afternoon sunshine. Today, its street, eerily empty, cordoned off by authorities responding to what official reports called unexplained meteorological phenomena. Jen's chronocycle materialized from its compressed state as they approached the park's main entrance. Its sleek design suggesting technology centuries ahead of its time. Temporal enforcement privilege, she explained, noting Naruto's curious expression. In emergency situations, Time Force is authorized to utilize future technology when the timeline is already compromised. Must be convenient, Naruto observed, swinging himself onto the passenger position behind her. In my world, we just run really fast. The bike hummed to life beneath them, its engine producing an otherworldly tone that vibrated at frequencies just beyond normal human hearing. As they accelerated toward the police barricade, Jen activated a device on her wrist that projected an official-looking holographic badge. Temporal Investigative Division, she informed the startled officer at the barricade. This area is now under TID jurisdiction. The officer blinked in confusion, then nodded with the glazed expression of someone affected by perception-altering technology. Of course, Agent, we've secured the perimeter as requested. Once past the barricade, Jen deactivated the holographic badge. Psychic paper, she explained, shows viewers whatever credentials would most impress them. Technically a restricted technology, but invaluable for maintaining timeline integrity without creating complicated explanations. They proceeded deeper into the park, the chronocycle's ADVA, NCED sensors guiding them toward the anomaly. As they approached the center of the disturbance, reality itself began to waver around them, trees flickering between seasons, pathways rearranging their patterns. Water features appearing and disappearing as different points in the park's history manifested briefly before returning to present configuration. Temporal fluidity increasing, Jen noted, consulting her scanner. This is worse than the initial readings indicated. The manipulation point is accelerating dimensional convergence locally. Naruto activated the Rinnegan, its concentric purple E-rings expanding to provide enhanced perception of the disturbance. What he saw alarmed him. The fabric of reality itself was being systematically unwoven and reconfigured into an unnatural pattern. It's like a genjutsu applied to physical space, he observed as they dismounted near a central clearing. An illusion made real through temporal manipulation. At the center of the clearing stood WH. It appeared to be an ordinary stone bench, except that it existed in multiple states simultaneously. From certain angles, it appeared weathered and moss-covered, from others, newly installed, from yet others, partially destroyed or completely absent. Surrounding it was a complex array of symbols carved into the ground itself, some recognizable as modified versions of sealing jutsu from Naruto's world. Others resembling the temporal mathematics used in Time Force technology. Kabuto's work, Naruto confirmed, kneeling to examine the carvings without touching them. He's created a hybrid sealing array that uses this location's temporal significance as an anchor point. The bench must be important somehow. Jen consulted her historical database. This exact spot, in the year 3000, it's where the Time Force Command Center's primary temporal core was located. The bench is sitting precisely where the chronological stabilization matrix would be positioned. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the complex array. He's using your future technology's position as a focal point. The array taps into the temporal energy that will eventually exist here, creating a feedback loop through time itself. But how would Kabuto know where future technology would be positioned? Jen questioned, scanning the array with increasingly concerned expressions. That information is classified even within Time Force. Before Naruto could speculate, his Rinnegan detected a disturbance approaching from the eastern edge of the clearing. The air shimmered like heat waves above desert sand, molecules dancing in unnatural patterns as something pushed through the dimensional barrier. We have company, he warned, straightening into a defensive stance. Something's coming through. Jen immediately activated her morpher. Time for Time Force. In a flash of pink energy, she transformed into her ranger form, the advanced armor materializing around her body in segments of crystalline technology that locked into place with precision. Naruto followed suit, channeling chakra to activate his hybrid transformation. The process had become more fluid with practice, orange-based armor flowing across his body like liquid metal before solidifying, the Rinnegan's purple glow intensifying as power channeled through his enhanced senses. The dimensional tier widened, edges crystallizing into a stabilized portal approximately 7 feet tall. Through it stepped a figure that made Naruto's blood run cold despite never having seen it before. Something about its presence registered as fundamentally wrong, an abomination against natural law. The being stood slightly taller than a human, its body a grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical components. The base form appeared humanoid, covered in red muse, clay-like tissue that pulsed with internal energy. Silver armor adorned its chest, shoulders, and limbs, the metal seeming to grow from the flesh rather than being attached externally. Most disturbing was its head, half resembling the skull-like visage of a feared villain from Ranger history, half bearing the pale, horned features of the Otsutsuki clan from Naruto's dimension. At last, the creature spoke. Its voice a dual-toned abomination that seemed to emanate from two separate vocal systems simultaneously. The Rinnegan bearer reveals himself. What is that? Jen whispered, her scanner frantically attempting to categorize the entity. Naruto's Rinnegan analyzed the being's energy signature, identifying components from both dimensions in impossible configuration. A fusion, he realized with growing horror. Kabuto has somehow combined entities from both our worlds. The creature laughed, the sound echoing with unnatural harmonics. Perceptive, young shinobi, allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Lord Zetsuki, a perfect synthesis of Lord Zed's conquering will and Otsutsuki biological transcendence. Impossible, Jen breathed. Lord Zed was purified during the Z-wave years ago, and crossing biological material between dimensions should result in molecular breakdown, not stable fusion. Ordinary scientific constraints no longer apply, Zetsuki replied, gesturing to the array beneath their feet. The convergence points serve as perfect laboratories for transcending such limitations. Your friend Kabuto has proven quite resourceful in facilitating my rebirth. Naruto shifted subtly, positioning himself between the abomination and Jen. What do you want? Zetsuki's mismatched eyes, one glowing red, one pale lavender with veins extending from its corners, fixed on Naruto with predatory focus. Those eyes of yours, the Rinnegan, legendary even among the Otsutsuki clan. With them, I could accelerate my evolution beyond current constraints. Not happening, Naruto replied. Chakra flaring around his body, invisible manifestation of his resolve. Whatever you are, you shouldn't exist. The dimensional barriers exist for a reason. Barriers exist to be transcended, Zetsuki countered, raising a staff that materialized from particles of light and darkness. All evolution requires breaking established limitations. Your eyes understand this truth better than most. They see beyond conventional boundaries of reality. Without warning, Zetsuki struck, the staff extending with impossible speed toward Naruto's face, specifically targeting his eyes. Only, the Rinnegan's enhanced perception allowed him to dodge, the weapon grazing his shoulder instead of piercing his skull. The array, Naruto called as he engaged the monstrosity directly. It's powering his stability in this dimension. Disrupt it. The Pink Ranger moved immediately, her chrono saber materializing in her hand as she approached the carved symbols. On it. Cover me, Zetsuki roared with dual-voiced rage, his attention dividing between Naruto and Gen's attempt to disable his anchor point. Insignificant insects, you cannot comprehend the new order I represent. The battle erupted across the clearing with devastating intensity. Naruto created shadow clones that engaged from multiple angles, each utilizing different aspects of his hybrid power set. The original focused on defensive maneuvers, analyzing Zetsuki's fighting style for weaknesses while his duplicates tested various approaches. Interesting, Zetsuki observed, dispatching 2 clones with frightening efficiency. Your shadow clones retain quantum coherence despite the dimensional displacement. Another indication of your value as a research subject. I'm not a lab rat, Naruto growled, channeling wind. Natured chakra threw his fist as he landed a solid blow to Zetsuki's midsection. And neither was Lord Zed or whatever Otsutsuki you've corrupted to create this abomination. The hit connected with enough force to shatter granite. But Zetsuki merely staggered backward, the damaged tissue regenerating almost instantly. Lord Zed's essence was preserved in quantum suspension, and the Otsutsuki biological material was quite willing to accept a new purpose. We are a perfect symbiosis, the ideal bridge between dimensions. While Naruto kept Zetsuki occupied, Gen methodically disrupted the array, her chrono saber precisely cutting through key junction points in the ceiling pattern. Each successful disruption caused localized temporal fluctuations, brief glimpses of past and future versions of the park flashing into existence before stabilizing. The northeastern anchor point is proving resistant, she called to Naruto. It's protected by some kind of chakra barrier I can't penetrate. Naruto created 3 additional shadow clones to intensify his assault on Zetsuki, buying himself a moment to assess Gen's situation. Through the Rinnegan, he could see the problematic section, a port ion of the array incorporating protections drawn from high-level fuinjutsu techniques. It's a blood seal, he realized. It can only be disrupted by the blood of whoever created it, or someone with similar genetic signature. Meaning Kabuto, Gen concluded. Without him, we can't fully disable the array. Zetsuki laughed, the sound reverberating with unnatural overtones. Your understanding comes too late. The convergence network is already self-sustaining. This array is merely one node in a vast web spanning both dimensions. The fusion creature suddenly changed tactics, slamming his STAFF into the ground with earth-shattering force. The impact sent pulses of crimson and purple energy through the array, activating secondary functions Naruto hadn't initially detected. The symbols began glowing with increasing intensity, reality itself buckling around them as temporal and dimensional forces responded to the unnatural stimulus. What's happening? Gen demanded, her scanner beeping frantically as readings exceeded its measurement capabilities. He's forcing an accelerated convergence. Naruto realized, the Rinnegan perceiving energies beyond normal sensory range. Using the ARR to create a localized dimensional collapse. The sky above them darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling into a vortex centered directly over the clearing. Through gaps in the turbulent formation, Naruto glimpsed fragments of another reality, his reality. Brief flashes of familiar landscapes, faces, battles still raging in the world he'd left behind. Behold the thinning veil, Zetsuki proclaimed. Arms spread wide as reality fractured around them. Soon, selected elements of both dimensions will merge under my guidance. A new existence forged from the strongest components of each world. Naruto stared upward, momentarily transfixed by glimpses of home. Through one particularly clear rift, he saw a battlefield he recognized, the allied shinobi forces still fighting against seemingly impossible odds. For a heartbeat, he made eye contact with a familiar figure, Sakura, her expression changing from concentration to shock as she somehow perceived him through the dimensional aperture. Naruto. Her voice reached him faintly, distorted by the barriers between worlds but unmistakably hers. Sakura, he called back, knowing she might not hear him but unable to remain silent. The war is everyone. Interesting. Zetsuki interrupted, studying Naruto's reaction with clinical detachment. Your emotional connection to your home dimension creates a natural resonance point. Useful information. The observation snapped Naruto back to the immediate threat. Whatever glimpse of home the convergence had granted, he couldn't allow himself to be distracted from protecting this world, these pay. Opal, who had accepted him without hesitation. Gen, he called, chakra flaring around his body as he prepared a high-level technique. Get clear of the array. I'm going to collapse it. The Pink Ranger immediately leapt backward, recognizing the intensity of the energy Naruto was gathering. Whatever you're planning, do it fast. Temporal readings are approaching critical threshold. Naruto formed a complex sequence of hand signs, combining traditional ninja techniques with intuitive adaptations guided by the Rinnegan. 6 Paths Technique. Dimensional Convergence Disruption. The concentric C circles of the Rinnegan projected outward, expanding to encompass the entire array. Where the purple energy touched the glowing symbols, it created counteracting patterns, neutralizing the unnatural convergence by imposing fundamental order on the chaotic energies. No, Zetsuki howled, lunging toward Naruto with inhuman speed. You'll destroy years of preparation. Gen intercepted the fusion creature, her chrono saber clashing against his staff in a shower of temporal energy. Not today, monster. Her ranger-enhanced strength momentarily matched Zetsuki's, creating the opening Naruto needed. With a final surge of power, Naruto completed the technique. The array shattered, symbols disintegrating into particles of light that dissipated into the atmosphere. The dimensional apertures above began to close, reality reknitting itself as natural barriers reasserted their integrity. Zetsuki screamed in rage and pain, his form destabilizing as the array that anchored his impossible fusion lost coherence. This is merely a setback, he snarled, body flickering between solid and translucent states. The primary convergence approaches. When it arrives, no power in either dimension will prevent the new order. With those ominous words, Zetsuki's form collapsed inward, disappearing in an implosion of light and darkness that left nothing but scorched earth where he had stood. Silence L across the clearing as natural laws gradually reasserted themselves. The sky cleared, birds cautiously resumed singing, and the temporal fluctuations subsided to barely perceptible levels. Gen powered down from her ranger form, approaching Naruto with professional concern tempered by newfound respect. Are you all right? She asked, noting the exhaustion evident in his posture. The Rinnegan tech, HNIQUE, had clearly demanded tremendous energy. I'll manage, Naruto assured her, his own transformation receding as he conserved remaining chakra. But that was disturbing on multiple levels. Gen nodded grimly, surveying the aftermath with analytical precision. A stable fusion of entities from different dimensions should be impossible. The molecular incompatibility alone would prevent cellular cohesion. Kabuto has always excelled at the impossible, Naruto replied, kneeling to examine residual energy patterns in the soil. In my world, he perfected resurrection techniques that even the originators couldn't master. If anyone could find a way to create viable cross-dimensional fusion, it would be him. Something on the ground caught his attention. A fragment of parchment partially buried in disturbed soil. Carefully, he extracted it, finding a scrap of what appeared to be ancient writing preserved through some unknown method. What is it? Gen asked, moving closer to examine the discovery. I'm not sure, Naruto admitted, studying symbols that seemed to combine elements from both their worlds. The language is unlike anything I recognize completely, but certain characters resemble ancient script from my dimension. Gen produced a scanner from her equipment belt, passing it over the fragment. Dating analysis indicates it's approximately 10,000 years old, but ith temporal anomalies that suggest exposure to interdimensional energy. Naruto's eyes widened as implications registered. 10,000 years. That predates modern shinobi civilization in my world. It's from the era of the Sage of Six Paths, the original Rinnegan wielder. Their communicators activated simultaneously, Captain Logan's voice cutting through their speculation. Gen. Naruto, were detecting similar array activations at multiple convergence points. All Time Force Rangers report to headquarters immediately. Acknowledged. Gen responded, already moving toward the chrono cycle. Quote, we've secured the park location and recovered a potentially significant artifact. Returning to base now. As they mounted the vehicle, Naruto carefully secured the parchment fragment in a specialized containment case Gen provided. We need to investigate this further, he said. If there's evidence of previous dimensional crossovers dating back 10,000 years, then this convergence might not be the first. Gen finished his thought, the implications settling heavily between them. And Zetsuki's new order might have historical precedent we know nothing about. The chrono cycle accelerated away from the park, leaving behind scorched earth and lingering questions. As they rejoined normal traffic patterns, Naruto found himself processing not just the immediate threat, but the brief glimpse of home the convergence had granted, and the complicated emotions it had awakened. Sakura had seen him. For a moment, worlds had connected, and someone from his past had witnessed his continued existence. The knowledge that he hadn't been forgotten, that his absence was noticed and mourned, carried both comfort and renewed pain. Gen, perceptive despite her professional demeanor, seemed to sense his emotional turbulence. Your connection to your home dimension remains strong, she observed. The glimpse you saw, it affected you deeply. It's complicated, Naruto admitted, the wind whipping past them as they traveled. Seeing them still fighting, still enduring, part of me feels guilty for not being there, for finding any happiness or purpose here while they continue to suffer. Survivor's guilt, Gen identified with surprising gentleness. In temporal displacement cases, it's one of the most common psychological responses. The feeling that you've abandoned your proper time and place. That you're betraying those left behind by adapting to your new reality. Naruto nodded, surprised by her insight. You speak from experience. A moment of silence stretched between them before Gen responded. When I first came to this time period from the year 3000, I left behind everything I knew. Colleagues, family, my entire world. Adapting felt like betrayal, as though each moment of happiness here somehow diminished my connection to the future. The personal admission, offered without professional detachment, created a deeper connection between them than hours of tactical coordination had managed. Naruto found himself appreciating the courage it took for someone so disciplined to share vulnerability. How did you reconcile it? He asked. I realized that honoring my responsibilities in the present didn't diminish my connection to the future, she answered thoughtfully. That finding purpose here was not betrayal but necessity, for my mission and my sanity. Wisdom in her words resonated with Naruto's own developing philosophy about his displacement. In my world, there's a saying, a shinobi who abandons the mission is trash, but a shinobi who abandons their comrades is worse than trash. I've always believed that protecting people, wherever and whenever you find them, is the highest purpose. Then perhaps your presence here isn't random chance or cosmic accident, Gen suggested as they approached Time Force headquarters. Perhaps you're exactly where you need to be to protect both worlds. The thought provided unexpected comfort as they returned to the complex temporal politics awaiting them at headquarters. Whatever his ultimate destiny, whether returning home eventually or remaining in this dimension permanently, Naruto was increasing why convinced that his current path served a necessary purpose. The Time Force Command Center hummed with heightened activity as teams analyzed data from multiple convergence points. Holographic displays showed simultaneous disturbances across 3 continents, each exhibiting patterns similar to the Silver Hills Park array but with subtle variations reflecting local temporal significance. Coordinated activation, Captain Logan confirmed as Gen and Naruto joined the central briefing. 27 arrays initiated precisely synchronized sequences, creating a global network of dimensional weak points. Lucas, Trip, and Katie had already returned from their respective assignments, each having encountered situations similar to Naruto and Gen's experience. Trip's green hair was singed at the edges. while Lucas sported a bruise along his jawline that suggested close-quarters combat. The array we encountered was guarded by hybridized foot soldiers, Lucas reported, displaying holographic images of creatures that combined white Zetsu biological components with mechanized putty features. They exhibited strength and regenerative capabilities beyond standard threats. Ours featured a temporal trap mechanism. Katie added, if Trip hadn't detected the quantum signature, we would have been locked in a time loop while the array completed its activation cycle. Logan nodded grimly, adding their reports to the accumulating data. Each array appears specifically designed for its location, incorporating local temporal resonance patterns into its function. This wasn't hastily assembled, it represents months, possibly years of careful planning. But Kabuto has only been in this dimension for weeks. Ethan's voice came through a communication link from Reefside, where the Dino Thunder team monitored their own local situation. How could he have established preparation predating his arrival? Unless he didn't, Naruto realized, producing the parchment fragment they'd recovered. Captain, I believe this might provide contextual information relevant to our situation. Logan accepted the artifact with careful hands, placing it on a specialized scanner that projected its contents as a three-dimensional hologram. The enhanced image revealed text and diagrams that combined elements from both dimensions in a synthesis that shouldn't have been possible 10,000 years ago. Preliminary translation matrix engaged, announced the computer system. Analyzing linguistic patterns, partial translation available. The holographic text shifted, certain symbols transforming into modern language while others remained indecipherable. Even with the limitations, enough became clear to silence the room. The Great Convergence approaches again, Logan read from the translated sections. As it did in the time of the Sage, when worlds merged and power flowed between realms. The celestial guardian with eyes of rippled purple shall stand at the nexus point, either to join or separate the dimensional flow. Single quote. Again, Naruto repeated, focusing on the critical word. It says, approaches again. This has happened before. Trip approached the hologram, his Zybrian mental abilities allowing unique insight. The diagrams show astronomical alignments corresponding to cyclical dimensional phenomena occurring approximately every 10,000 years. Which would place Ace the last convergence during the era of the Sage of Six Paths in my world, Naruto confirmed. And during what period in this dimension? The original formation of the morphing grid, Tommy's voice. CE joined the conversation through the communication link. According to Ranger historical records, that's when Zordon first established the foundational energy patterns that would eventually power all Ranger technologies. The implications settled across the command center like a heavy mantle. What they faced wasn't unprecedented but cyclical, a natural cosmic phenomenon that previous generations had encountered and somehow managed. We need more information, Logan decided. If this convergence has historical precedent, there must be additional records. Trip, search the Time Force archives. For any reference to interdimensional events approximately 10,000 years ago. Katie, establish communication with all former Ranger teams. Someone might have encountered relevant information during their active service. What about me? Naruto asked, sensing an opportunity in this historical connection. Logan considered him thoughtfully. Your Rinnegan seems central to this situation. The fragment specifically mentions eyes of rippled purple in connection to the convergence. I believe you should focus on developing that connection, specifically, the glimpses of your home dimension you experienced during the array activation. Quote, you want me to try to see through the dimensional barrier intentionally, Naruto realized. Under controlled conditions, Logan clarified. If you could establish even limited communication with your world, we might gain critical information about how the convergence is manifesting on that side. Jen stepped forward. I'll assist. My temporal stabilize. RS can help create a safe environment for the attempt. Agreed, Logan decided. Use the shielded meditation chamber. It's designed for temporal visualization exercises, should provide optimal conditions for interdimensional perception. As the team dispersed to their assignments, Naruto found himself walking alongside Jen toward the specialized chamber. The growing ease between them, professional respect evolving into something approaching friendship, provided unexpected comfort in this increasingly complex situation. You're not just offering to help for tactical reasons, he observed quietly as they entered a secluded corridor. Jen's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine concern beneath. I've experienced displacement across time. I understand something of what you're feeling. If there's a chance for you to reconnect with your home, even briefly, you deserve that opportunity. The simple humanity in her motivation touched Naruto deeply. From their first meeting, he had perceived Jen as primarily a tactical ally, competent, disciplined, but emotionally distant. This glimpse of compassion beneath the Time Force officer exterior revealed depths he hadn't fully appreciated. Thank you, he said simply, the words carrying weight beyond their syllables. The meditation chamber resembled a hybrid of scientific laboratory and spiritual sanctuary. Circular in design, its walls incorporated specialized materials that dampened temporal fluctuations while enhancing mental focus. The center featured a raised platform surrounded by monitoring equipment designed to record and analyze psychic impressions without disrupting them. Temporal viewers use this space to glimpse possible futures, Jen explained as they entered. It's shielded against paradox effects and dimensional bleed-through. Naruto stepped onto the central platform, feeling subtle energy currents flowing through its structure. It reminds me of sage meditation spaces in my world, places where the boundary between physical and spiritual reality thins naturally. That's not coincidence, Jen replied, activating monitoring systems with practiced efficiency. Human consciousness evolved sim-alar methods for transcending normal perceptual limitations across multiple cultures and dimensions. The technology here simply enhances natural capabilities. As Jen calibrated the equipment, Naruto prepared himself mentally for the attempt. He settled into a cross-legged position, hands forming a familiar meditation seal that helped channel chakra through specific pathways. I'll monitor your vital signs and dimensional resonance patterns, Jen explained, completing the system initialization. If anything approaches dangerous levels, I'll terminate the session immediately. Naruto nodded appreciation for her caution. In my experience, the boundary between helpful insight and harmful overexposure can be difficult to identify until it's crossed. Exactly why you won't be doing this alone, Jen affirmed, taking a position at the control console. Ready when you are. Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself with practiced discipline. When he opened them again, the Rinnegan activated, its concentric circles expanding to full manifestation. Through its enhanced perception, the chamber's energy patterns became visible, currents of temporal power flowing in complex geometries ignited to facilitate consciousness expansion. Beginning first phase, he announced, voice calm despite the significance of the attempt. Focusing on the dimensional boundary itself. The Rinnegan allowed him to perceive layers of reality invisible to normal sight. Within the chamber's protected environment, he could see the actual structure of dimensional separation, not a solid wall but a permeable membrane of energy fluctuating with cosmic rhythms. Where during the convergence event he had glimpsed through random tears in this membrane, now he sought to create controlled apertures through focused intention. Dimensional resonance increasing, Jen reported, monitoring his progress. You're establishing connection points along natural convergence lines. Naruto directed his awareness to ward-specific memories of home, not just places but people, emotional connections that created natural resonance points between dimensions. Focusing on his strongest bonds, Sakura, Kakashi, Sasuke, he channeled chakra through the Rinnegan in carefully measured pulses. The effect was immediate and startling. The air before him shimmered, reality thinning to reveal glimpses of another dimension. Unlike the chaotic flashes during the convergence event, these images came with greater clarity and persistence. He was looking through a window rather than random cracks. I see them, he whispered, voice tight with emotion. The allied shinobi forces, they've established a defensive perimeter around the village ruins. They're still holding against Madara's forces. Jen adjusted controls, stabilizing the connection. Can you determine their temporal alignment relative to your departure? How much time has passed there? Naruto focused on environmental details, battle damage patterns, fortification stages. The physical condition of people he recognized. Not long. Days, perhaps, rather than weeks. Time must flow differently between dimensions. The image shifted, focusing on a command tent, where familiar figures gathered around a tactical map. Naruto recognized Kakashi, Tsunade, and Gaara, leaders coordinating their remaining forces with grim determination. "They're discussing a counter-offensive," he observed, reading lips and body language with practiced skill. "Something about Madara's forces being temporarily weakened after a major assault. Can they perceive you?" Jen asked, fascinated by the one-way nature of the visualization. "I don't think." Naruto began, then stopped as Kakashi suddenly looked up, his mismatched eyes widening in apparent recognition. The copy ninja said something to the others, pointing toward what from their perspective must have appeared as an anomaly in empty air. "Kakashi-sensei," Naruto whispered, instinctively reaching toward the image. "Can you hear me?" The moment his fingers approached the dimensional aperture, the connection intensified dramatically. The window expanded, energy readings spiking across Gen's monitoring equipment. Alarm signals activated as the controlled visualization began transitioning toward actual physical connection. "Naruto, pull back," Gen warned, system safeguards engaging automatically. "The connectio N is becoming too stable, you're creating an actual breach." With tremendous effort, Naruto withdrew his consciousness from the expanding connection, the Rinnegan's power receding as he reasserted control. The dimensional window collapsed, reality reknitting itself as natural barriers recovered their integrity. Breathing heavily from the exertion, Naruto lowered his hands. "They saw me. Kakashi definitely perceived something, and I think Tsunade did too." Gen approached, medical scanner evaluating his condition with quick efficiency. "Your chakra levels dropped significantly during the connection. The dimensional visualization requires tremendous energy to maintain. But it worked," Naruto emphasized, excitement overriding physical exhaustion. "We established that communication is possible. That they're still fighting, and surviving, on the other side." Before Gen could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. "Gen, Naruto," Captain Logan's voice carried urgency even through the digital connection. "Report to the command center immediately. We've discovered something critical in the historical archives." The command center had transformed during their absence. The central holographic display now showed ancient artifacts from multiple sources, scrolls, tablets, and crystalline data storage devices spanning millennia of history from both Earth and distant worlds. Trip stood at the center of this historical convergence, his Zybrian mental abilities having facilitated connections between seemingly disparate information sources. "We found references in multiple historical archives," the Green Ranger explained as Naruto and Gen joined the gathering. "The convergence isn't just a natural phenomenon, it's a deliberately engineered cycle created for specific purpose." Logan gestured toward a particularly ancient scroll displayed prominently in the holographic array. "This is from Eltar, Zordon's homeworld. It describes the original creation of the morph. Ingrid is a response to interdimensional instability threatening multiple realities. And this," Trip continued, highlighting a stone tablet covered in symbols Naruto recognized from his world's most ancient ruins, "appears to be a corresponding record from your dimension. It describes the Sage of Six Paths creating a great ceiling to stabilize the world boundary during a time of reality bleeding." They're describing the same event from different perspectives, Naruto realized, the Rinnegan activating involuntarily as he processed this revelation. The Sage and Zordon, they collaborated across dimensions. "Precisely," Logan confirmed. "According to these records, approximately 10,000 years ago, a natural cosmic alignment created the first major convergence between dimensions. Rather than fighting it, these ancient powers worked together to harness it, creating permanent energy systems that would maintain separation while allowing controlled power flow between realities. The morphing grid in our world," Gen extrapolated, "and the chakra system in yours. That's incredible," Naruto breathed, pieces of historical mystery suddenly aligning into coherent pattern. "The Sage of Six Paths is credited with introducing chakra to humanity, but our records never explained where the system originated. Because it was partially designed by an interdimensional ally," Logan concluded. "These records indicate they created a cyclical maintenance system. Every 10,000 years, the natural convergence would allow necessary adjustments to both energy frameworks, keeping them in proper balance. But something's different this time," Katie noted, studying related data streams. "The convergence is manifesting more aggressively, with uncontrolled breaches rather than stable transfer points." Because the intended guardians aren't in position, Tripp explained, highlighting additional textual references. The cycle requires specific individuals with compatible energy signatures to manage the transition process. In previous convergences, there were prepared successors to both Zordon and the Sage, trained specifically for this purpose. But Zordon sacrificed Ed himself to defeat the Alliance of Evil. Tommy's voice contributed through the communication link. And from what Naruto has told us, the Sage of Six Paths left no direct successor in their current era. So the system is attempting to complete its programmed cycle without proper guidance, Logan summarized. Creating instability as automatic processes activate without the necessary control mechanisms. Naruto studied the ancient records with growing understanding. That's why the Rinnegan awakened when I crossed dimensions. It's responding to the convergence cycle, trying to establish me as a substitute controller for the process. And why the Dino gems bonded with you so completely, Tommy added. They're responding to your potential role in the convergence management. Kabuto must have discovered this, Jen realized. The tactical implications becoming clear. He's not trying to prevent the convergence, he's attempting to hijack the control mechanism. To position Zetsuki as E-dimensional guardian instead of Naruto. The full danger of their situation crystallized with terrible clarity. If Kabuto succeeded in placing his hybrid creation at the convergence nexus point, he could potentially control both the morphing grid and the chakra system simultaneously, gaining unprecedented power over two entire dimensions. The final convergence point, Naruto said, turning to Logan. The ancient records, do they indicate where the primary nexus forms during the cycle completion? Logan nodded grimly. A location equidistant between dimensions, what the texts call the boundary throne. According to these coordinates, in our current era, it would manifest at these specific locations. He displayed a global map with 7 highlighted points. These power nexuses must be activated in precise sequence during the height of the convergence. And the final activation point? Tommy pressed. Angel Grove, Logan answered, naming the city where Ranger history had begun on Earth. Specifically, the ruins of the original command center on the mountainside overlooking the city. Zordon's first base on Earth, Tommy confirmed. The place where the morphing grid established its primary Earth connection. The strategic picture became clear. Their 2-week preparation window now had definitive focus. They needed to secure these nexus points, particularly the Angel Grove location, before Kabuto and Zetsuki could position themselves to control the convergence process. We need to coordinate with all available Ranger teams, Logan decided. This threat transcends normal jurisdictional boundaries. And I need to establish more comprehensive communication with my dimension, Naruto added. If the chakra system and morphing grid are complementary creations, we need coordination on both sides to properly manage the convergence. As the command center erupted into organized activity, communications being established, resources allocated, strategies developed, Naruto found himself momentarily overwhelmed by the scope of responsibility suddenly placed on his shoulders. He had always carried burdens beyond his years, but becoming the interdimensional equivalent of Zordon or the Sage of Six Paths had never featured in even his wildest dreams. A gentle hand on his arm drew his attention. Jen stood beside him, her normally disciplined expression softened by genuine understanding. Overwhelming, isn't it? Finding out you're suddenly central to cosmic balance. Naruto nodded, appreciating her perceptiveness. In my world, I was used to being important to my village's fate. But this is beyond anything I imagined. You're not alone in this, she reminded him, her voice carrying unusual warmth. Whatever role the convergence has cast you in, you have allies on both sides of the dimensional divide. Before he could respond, the communication system activated with an incoming transmission from Reefside. Kira's face appeared on the main screen, her expression combining relief at seeing Naruto with urgency regarding their situation. We've got movement here, she reported professionally, though her eyes lingered on Naruto with unmistakable personal concern. Kabuto's forces are establishing a perimeter around the local convergence point. Dr. O thinks they're preparing for preliminary activation. We're facing similar activity at multiple locations, Logan confirmed. Coordinate with local authorities to evacuate civilians from the affected areas. We'll dispatch Time Force personnel to support your team within the hour. Understood, Kira acknowledged, then hesitated before adding, Naruto, it's good to see you. Your energy signature has been missed here. The slight emphasis carried meaning beyond tactical considerations. I'll be returning to Reefside soon, Naruto assured her, the yellow Dino energy within his chakra network resonating at her presence even through digital communication. We have crucial information to share with the entire team. As the communication ended, Naruto became aware of Jen observing the exchange with thoughtful assessment. Something in her expression had shifted, a subtle recalibrate. On as she processed the obvious connection between Naruto and Kira. The Yellow Ranger, she noted with careful neutrality. Your energy signatures show remarkable compatibility. Yes, Naruto acknowledged, seeing no reason for evasion. The yellow Dino gem fragment bonded with my chakra created a natural resonance between us. Jen nodded, professional demeanor reasserting itself. Such connections can be tactically advantageous. Energy synchronization improves combat coordination considerably. The deliberate focus on practical aspects rather than personal implications told Naruto more than any direct question might have. Something had shifted in their developing relationship, a boundary established where previously there had been potential for deeper connection. Jen, he began, Ling compelled to address the unspoken complexity between them. We should prepare for deployment, she interrupted smoothly, already turning toward the equipment area. If you're returning to Reefside, you'll need updated temporal stabilizers to maintain dimensional integrity during transit. The professional redirection was expertly executed, leaving no natural opening to pursue the personal conversation Naruto had attempted to initiate. With the weight of interdimensional crisis demanding immediate attention, he recognized that some discussions would need to wait for more appropriate timing. Of course, he agreed, following her lead back into tactical considerations. And I should prepare for another dimensional viewing attempt, this time with specific focus on communicating the convergence information to my world's leaders. As they moved through the command center's controlled chaos, Naruto found himself navigating not just the complexity of cosmic responsibility, but the challenging landscape of human connection. Between worlds, between duties, between relationships forming across dimensional boundaries, his path forward required balance in all things. The irony wasn't lost on him. The Sage of Six Paths had been renowned for finding harmony between opposing forces, creating balance where conflict had previously reigned. Perhaps that legacy was asserting itself in ways beyond the obvious power of the Rinnegan, teaching him to balance not just dimensions, but the relationships forming within them. Whatever the coming convergence would bring, resolution, catastrophe, or transformation, Naruto was increasingly certain that connections formed in this world would prove as significant as those he'd left behind. The challenge would be honoring both without sacrificing either, finding harmony where lesser souls might see only contradiction. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, Mystic Connections. The ancient trees of Briarwood Forest loomed overhead like silent sentinels, their massive trunks and interlaced canopy creating a cathedral of living wood. Sunlight filtered through in dappled patterns, illuminating an understory that vibrated with an energy Naruto recognized immediately, not chakra. Not morphing grid power, but something equally primordial and familiar. Nature energy, he murmured, instinctively drawing a deep breath scented with loam, moss, and something subtly mystical. This forest is saturated with it. Beside him, Tommy Oliver nodded in understanding. Briarwood Forest contains one of the few active magical nexus points in our dimension. At your sensing is what the Mystic Force Rangers call the root network, a magical field that connects all living things. 3 days had passed since the revelations at Time Force headquarters. The final convergence approaching rapidly, the Ranger teams had dispersed to investigate dimensional disturbances across the country. Naruto had returned to Reefside briefly, reuniting with the Dino Thunder team and particularly with Kira, whose yellow Dino energy had pulsed in harmony with his own the moment they'd reconnected. Their reunion had been meaningful but abbreviated, tactical forcing them to focus on the approaching crisis rather than their developing personal connection. Now, following reports of unusual magical disturbances in Briarwood, Naruto found himself alongside Tommy investigating what might be another manifestation of Kabuto's interdimensional manipulation. The energy feels different from the morphing grid, Naruto observed as they followed a narrow path deeper into the forest. More alive somehow, less structured but more intuitive. The Mystic Force Rangers tap into magic that predates the morphing grid itself, Tommy explained, his experienced senses alert for any disturbance. Some theories suggest it might even be a more primal manifestation of the same universal energy, raw where the grid is refined. Naruto activated the Rinnegan briefly, its enhanced perception revealing patterns invisible to normal sight. The trees, they're conduits, living channels for energy flow. He paused, experiencing a moment of déjà vu. It reminds me of how the great trees surrounding the Hidden Leaf Village processed nature chakra. As they ventured deeper, the forest's natural sounds, birdsong, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, gradually faded, replaced by an unnatural silence that raised both men's combat instincts. Tommy checked his communicator, frowning at the display. Signals gone, he noted. We're either being jammed or we've crossed into a pocket dimension. The latter, Naruto confirmed, the Rinnegan identifying subtle distortions in reality's fabric. We passed through a dimensional membrane about 50 meters back. This looks like the forest. But it's a shadow realm, a reflection of the physical world. A musical laugh echoed through the trees, feminine, confident, carrying notes of both amusement and approval. Very impressive, called a voice from somewhere above them. Most visitors don't notice the transition until we point it out. Naruto and Tommy immediately shifted to defensive positions, scanning the canopy for the speaker. A flash of pink energy spiraled down the trunk of a massive oak, materializing into a young woman approximately Naruto's age. Her short black hair featured pink highlights hat matched the magical energy still crackling around her fingertips. She wore casual clothes with distinctive pink accents, a silver wand-like device tucked into her belt. Vita Raka, Tommy greeted, recognition replacing wariness. It's been a while, Dr. Oliver, she returned with a respectful nod before her curious gaze shifted to Naruto. And you must be the interdimensional ninja everyone's talking about. Your arrival set off every magical alarm in Briarwood. Naruto deactivated the Rinnegan, returning to normal perception as he offered a slight bow. Naruto Uzumaki, I'm guessing one of the Mystic Force Rangers Tommy mentioned. Pink Mystic Ranger, she confirmed with a hint of pride. Mistress of wind magic and transformation spells. She twirled her finger, creating a miniature whirlwind that danced between them before dissipating. Also part-time DJ and full-time defender against magical threats. There was something immediately appealing about Vita's direct manner, a confident authenticity that reminded Naruto of certain kunoichi from his world. No pretense, no unnecessary formality, just straightforward competence wrapped in a playfully rebellious exterior. We received reports of unusual magical activity, Tommy explained, getting directly to business. Given the approaching convergence, we're investigating any anomalies that might be related to Kabuto's operations. Vita's expression sobered. You'd better come with me, then. Our Xenodome has been going crazy for days, pages filling with prophecies and warnings about the Great Joining. Udana and Claire have been trying to translate the ancient text, but it's in a language none of us have seen before. She led them deeper into the mystical dimension, the forest gradually transforming around them. Trees grew more massive, their forms increasingly sculptural and deliberately shaped. Roots rose above ground in archways, branches twisted into natural stairways, and flowers glowed with null light that required no sunlight to flourish. Rootcore, Vita announced as they approached an enormous tree that had been transformed into a magnificent living structure. Our base of operations and magical headquarters. Inside, the tree had been hollowed into a vast chamber filled with mystical artifacts, ancient texts, and crystalline technology that blended seamlessly with organic elements. At the chamber's center stood a massive book upon an ornate pedestal, its pages turning by themselves as crimson energy flowed across the text. Two women looked up from their study of the book as the group entered. The elder possessed striking features framed by flowing red hair, her white robes and poised demeanor suggesting both power and wisdom. The younger, blonde and dressed in earthy tones, exhibited the slightly frazzled energy of an apprentice with too many responsibilities. Dr. Oliver, the elder greeted with a warm smile. It has been some time since our paths crossed. NT.S must be the dimensional visitor our crystals have been detecting. Udana. Tommy returned the greeting with evident respect. This is Naruto Uzumaki, from a parallel dimension. Naruto. Meet Udana, White Mystic Ranger and Sorceress Supreme of this realm, and her apprentice Claire. Naruto bowed respectfully, instinctively recognizing a power equivalent to the greatest leaders of his world. An honor to meet you. Your forest. It reminds me of the sacred groves where sages trained in my dimension. Because they are fundamentally the same, Udana replied, her perceptiveness matching her power. Magic and chakra. Different names for the same primordial energy expressed through cultural lenses. What you call nature chakra, we call elemental magic. The forms and techniques differ, but the underlying force is universal. Claire approached cautiously, her natural curiosity overcoming initial shyness. Is it true you have eyes that can see between worlds? The Zenotome mentioned a gaze that pierces veils. The Rinnegan. Naruto confirmed, briefly activating the concentric purple circles to demonstrate. It allows perception beyond normal limitations, including dimensional boundaries under certain conditions. Udana's expression sharpened with scholarly interest. May I? She requested, gesturing toward his eyes. Understanding her intent, Naruto nodded permission. The sorceress approached, her hands glowing with gentle white magic as she examined the Rinnegan without physical contact, magical senses extending to analyze its properties. Remarkable, she breathed after several moments. These eyes contain the same fundamental pattern as the ancient seals of dimensional concordance described in our oldest texts. The concentric circles mirror the 7 layers of real ity as understood by the original mystics. The Sage of 6 Paths, Naruto supplied, connecting her reference to his world's legendary figure. He was the first to possess these eyes in my dimension, approximately 10,000 years ago. Quote, during the previous convergence, Vita added, revealing her familiarity with the situation. We've been briefed about the approaching event. The other mystic rangers are securing magical nexus points throughout the region. Tommy moved toward the Zenotome, studying the actively changing pages with professional interest. These symbols, some match the ARTI fact we recovered from the Silver Hills convergence point. Indeed, Udana confirmed. The Zenotome is attempting to translate writings from what we call the first confluence, when magic, technology, and natural energy achieved perfect balance across multiple dimensions. Naruto approached the ancient book, the Rinnegan activating instinctively as he neared its pulsing energy. To his astonishment, the incomprehensible symbols began rearranging themselves before his eyes, shifting into patterns he could partially decipher. I can read some of this, he realized, leaning closer. It's using elements of ancient sage script from my world, combined with what looks like early Eltarian glyph forms that Jen showed me in the Time Force archives. The book responds to your Rinnegan, Udana observed. It recognizes you as a dimensional nexus point, a bridge between worlds. Naruto focused on a particular passage, translating aloud, when the 7 stars align beneath the 3 moons, He boundary throne shall manifest at the convergence of sacred geometries. The guardian with eyes of rippled purple shall either unite the flowing streams or maintain their separate courses, as wisdom dictates. It's describing the choice at the heart of the convergence, Tommy realized. Whether to allow the dimensions to merge or to reinforce their separation. But something's different in this cycle, Naruto continued. Finger tracing symbols that shifted beneath his touch. The usurper born of both worlds yet belonging to neither seeks the throne for purposes of dominion rather than balance. The corrupted fusion of Lord and Celestial threatens the harmony established by the first guardians. Zetsuki, Tommy identified immediately. The hybrid entity we encountered at Silver Hills. Vita moved closer to Naruto. Her natural curiosity evident in her animated expression. Can you see anything about how to counter this threat? The Zenotome usually provides guidance along with prophecy. As if responding to her question, the book's pages turned rapidly, settling on an illuminated diagram that depicted 7 interconnected nodes arranged in a pattern resembling the Rinnegan itself. At each node stood a human figure, each radiating a different colored energy. The 7 harmonies must be established before the final alignment, Naruto translated, the meaning becoming clearer as he continued. 7 guardians of distinct energies, synchronized with the boundary keeper, create the concordance web that stabilizes dimensional transit. 7 Rangers, Tommy interpreted. Each connected to you through some form of energy synchronization. Vita studied the diagram with increasing excitement. Like the Yellow Ranger from your team, Kira, right? I heard you two have some kind of energy bond already. And Jen Scott's, Tommy added. The time force connection you established during the Silver Hills investigation. 2 of 7, Udana noted, thoughtfully examining the illustration. 5 more connections must be established before the convergence reaches its peak. The implications settled heavily across the chamber. Naruto would need to form specific N-G bonds with 5 additional Rangers, connections that transcended mere teamwork to establish genuine energetic resonance. Before they could discuss this further, a crystal ball at the room's edge flared with urgent red light. Claire hurried to it, passing her hands over its surface to reveal an image of Briarwood's central plaza, where civilians fled from creatures that made Naruto's blood run cold. White Zetsu variants, he identified immediately, recognizing the plant-based humanoids despite their magical modifications. But they've been altered with what looks like dark magic. The creatures moved with unnatural fluidity. Their normally pale bodies now marbled with pulsing purple veins. Where standard Zetsu possessed limited shape-shifting abilities, these displayed more dramatic transformations. Limbs extending into weapons, bodies merging with nearby objects, faces shifting into monstrous configurations that inspired primal fear. Chimera magic, Udana identified with evident concern. Ancient forbidden techniques for merging distinct life forces. Someone has combined your world's creatures with our realm's darkest enchantments. Kabuto, Naruto and Tommy said simultaneously. Vita was already retrieving her morpher from her belt. I'll alert the others, but they're scattered across different magical dimensions securing the nexus points. I can reach the plaza fastest. We'll join you, Tommy decided, activating his own communicator. Naruto, your experience with Zetsu biology could be crucial in countering these hybrid threats. Udana approached, placing a crystalline amulet in Naruto's hand. Take this. It will help harmonize your chakra with our realm's magical currents. You may find your abilities manifesting differently within Briarwood's mystical field. The amulet pulsed with gentle energy as it touched his skin, immediately establishing resonance with his chakra network. Unlike the Dino gem's technological integration or Gen's temporal stabilization, this connection felt organic, like roots extending from his energy system into the soil of a new but compatible ecosystem. Thank you, he said, sensing the artifact's significance beyond its immediate utility. I'll use it respectfully. I would expect nothing less from one who carries the Rinnegan, Udana replied with quiet confidence. Now go. The balance between our worlds may depend on what happens today. Vita led them from Rootcore through a magical transportation tree, a living portal that collapsed the distance between the mystical dimension and Briarwood's physical reality. They emerged near the city center. The sounds of chaos immediately assaulting their senses. Time to bring the magic, Vita declared, raising her morpher. Magical source, mystic force. Pink energy engulfed her in a swirling vortex of magical power, transforming into her ranger form with a flash of light. The result combined elements of traditional ranger armor with mystical flourishes, flow. Wing fabric alongside protective plating, symbols of ancient power integrated into modern design. Tommy followed suit, his transformation into the Black Dino Ranger completing with practiced efficiency. Naruto, can you identify any weaknesses in these modified Zetsu? Naruto activated his own transformation, chakra and Dino energy flowing outward to create his hybrid armor as the Rinnegan manifested fully. With Udana's amulet integrated into his energy system, he noticed immediate differences. His normally orange-based armor now incorporated swirling patterns reminiscent of magical script. And the Rinnegan's perception extended into previously invisible mystical frequencies. Standard white Zetsu are vulnerable to fire-based attacks, he analyzed, scanning the approaching creatures. Air plant-based cellular structure burns readily. But these magical variants, they've been enhanced with some kind of transmutation resistance. So we adapt, Vita replied confidently, drawing her mystic wand. That's what Rangers do. Quote, the 3 warriors engaged the modified Zetsu with coordinated precision. Tommy's experience and tactical awareness complemented Vita's magical versatility and Naruto's interdimensional combat techniques. Yet despite their effectiveness, the creatures displayed disturbing adaptability, wounds closing with unnatural speed, severed limbs dissolving into magic essence before reforming in more dangerous configurations. They're learning from each attack, Naruto observed, using the Diva Path to repel 3 Zetsu simultaneously. Storing information about our techniques and developing countermeasures. Then we need to vary our approach, Vita suggested, transforming briefly into a pink tornado that scattered several creatures before reverting to ranger form. Keep them guessing. Naruto formed a sequence of hand signs, channeling chakra through pathways influenced by Udana's amulet. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The resulting clones materialized with an unexpected modification, each surrounded by a faint aura of magical energy that matched Vita's pink signature. When they engaged the Zetsu, their strikes carried additional impact, magical resonance, disrupting the creature's ability to regenerate. Your chakra is harmonizing with my magical frequency, Vita called out, noticing the effect immediately. Just like with the Yellow Ranger, but with magical properties instead of dinosaur energy. The observation crystallized something Naruto had been sensing since entering Briarwood. His chakra network was establishing natural resonance with Pink Mystic Ranger's unique energy signature. Unlike the immediate compatibility he'd experienced with Kira or the tactical synchronization with Gen, this connection felt elemental, a harmony between his nature chakra affinity and Vita's wind magic. Try combining our attacks directly, he suggested, creating a Rinnegan that pulsed with both chakra and magical energy. Your wind with my spiraling chakra. Vita immediately understood, channeling pink wind magic through her wand toward Naruto's technique. The energies merged seamlessly, the Rinnegan expanding and incorporating swirling pink turns that resembled musical notation, a reflection of Vita's identity as both musician and sorceress. Mystic Spiral Rinnegan, Naruto called out, driving the enhanced technique into the center of the Zetsu formation. The impact transcended physical force, magical harmonics disrupting the creatures at a fundamental level. Where a standard Rinnegan would create localized destruction, this hybrid technique generated expanding rings of pink-tinged energy that unraveled the magical enhancements binding the Zetsu together. Dozens of creatures collapsed simultaneously, their artificial cohesion dissolving as conflicting energies canceled each other out. That was awesome, Vita exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious even in the midst of battle. The magical resonance amplified your chakra technique exponentially, and it specifically targeted the magical binding components, Tommy observed professionally, dispatching a final Zetsu with his Brachio staff. Kabuto's hybrid creations are powerful but unstable. Their strength is also their vulnerability. As the immediate threat subsided, Naruto became aware of a subtle change in his energy system. The resonance with Vita had established something permanent, a harmonic frequency that his chakra network now recognized and maintained, similar to but distinct from his connection with Kira. You feel it too, don't you? Vita asked perceptively, powering down from her ranger form as the battle concluded. The energy synchronization. It's like finding a musical counterpoint you didn't know you were missing. Naruto nodded, the Rinnegan, and perceiving the newly established connection with perfect clarity. In my world, nature chakra practitioners sometimes experience spontaneous harmonization when their affinities perfectly complement each other. Your wind magic resonates specifically with aspects of my chakra nature, making you 2 points on the concordance web the Xenodome described, Tommy concluded, surveying the aftermath with analytical precision. 3 identified, 4 more needed before the convergence. Before they could discuss further implications, a familiar yellow energy signature registered on Naruto's senses. Turning, he saw a Time Force transport vehicle materialize at the plaza's edge, Kira and Gen emerging with evident relief at finding the situation contained. We got Tommy's alert, Gen explained, approaching with professional efficiency that didn't quite mask her concern. Time Force detected a magical disturbance overlapping with known Zetsu energy patterns. Looks like you handled it without us, Kira added, her eyes finding Naruto's immediately, yellow Dino energy pulsing in response to his proximity. Her gaze then shifted to Vita, noting the pink magical residue still surrounding Naruto's form. You must be one of the Mystic Rangers. Vita Raka, the pink Mystic Ranger, introduced herself with a friendly smile that nevertheless contained subtle assessment. Pink Ranger, Wind Magic Specialist. And apparently the newest addition to what I'm calling Team Interdimensional Chakra Harmony. Something complicated passed between Kira and Vita, not hostility but mutual recognitio. And of a shared connection to Naruto that neither had anticipated. Jen observed this silent exchange with the careful neutrality of someone professionally committed to remaining above emotional entanglements. The Xenotome provided critical information, Tommy interjected, diplomatically redirecting focus to tactical matters. It confirmed our theories about the concordance web needed to stabilize the convergence. 7 Rangers with established energy synchronization to Naruto, Jen summarized, having clearly been briefed on this possibility. Creating a network that can either reinforce dimensional boundaries or facilitate controlled integration. And I'm assuming our pink wind mage here is number 3. Kira asked, gesturing toward Vita with deliberate casualness that didn't quite conceal underlying tension. The magical resonance established itself naturally during combat, Naruto explained, sensing the need for transparency. Similar to how the yellow Dino energy connected us. But with different harmonic properties. Fascinating from both mystical and scientific perspectives, Tommy noted, his academic interest providing welcome neutrality. Each connection appears to CCESS different aspects of Naruto's chakra system, creating specialized pathways for energy exchange. Vita studied the subtle interactions between Naruto and the 2 female rangers with perceptive interest. So you've got dinosaur energy, she said to Kira, and you've got, what, exactly? She asked Jen. Temporal stabilization, the Time Force officer replied precisely. My connection with Naruto focuses on chronological anchoring rather than combat enhancement or elemental harmonization. 3 completely different types of energy resonance, Vita summarized thoughtfully. Which makes me wonder what the remaining 4 will bring to this interdimensional party. The conversation paused as Udana's voice emerged from Vita's morpher. Rangers, you must return to Rootcore immediately. The Xenotome has revealed the location of a convergence point within Briarwood Forest itself, one already being prepared for activation. Acknowledged, Vita responded. We've contained the Zetsu threat in the city. Returning with reinforcements. As they prepared to depart, Naruto became acutely aware of the 3 women whose energies now maintained distinct connections to his own. Each bond had formed naturally, emerging from compatibility rather than calculation. Yet the cumulative effect created a complexity he hadn't anticipated when first arriving in this dimension. Kira moved beside him as they followed Vita toward the transportation tree, her voice pitched for his ears alone. So, magical pink wind energy. That's new. It just happened, Naruto explained simply. Similar to how our connection formed during that first battle with Zeltrax, natural resonance between compatible energies. I get it, she assured him, though something in her tone suggested continued processing. Actually, it makes sense according to what Haley theorized about your interdimensional adapter role. You're literally designed to form these connections. That doesn't make them any less real, he countered gently, sensing the underlying concern beneath her rationalization. Energy compatibility reflects deeper harmony, it can't be manufactured or forced. Kira's expression softened slightly. I know, it's a lot to process. A week ago it was just you and me figuring out our weird dinosaur chakra bond. Now we're apparently building some kind of interdimensional power collective with you at the center. Before Naruto could respond, they reached the transportation tree, Vita gesturing for them to enter. One at a time through the portal. Focus your thoughts on Rootcore as you step through, or you might end up in the elemental planes instead, and trust me, you don't want to materialize in the fire realm unprepared. The journey through the living portal felt distinctly errant from technological teleportation, less mechanical precision, more organic flow, like being carried by a river current through living tissue. When they emerged inside Rootcore, Naruto immediately sensed the heightened magical activity. The Xenotome's pages turned rapidly, magical energy crackling around its ancient binding as it processed interdimensional information. Udana stood before a large crystal sphere, manipulating magical energies to display a 3-dimensional map of Briarwood Forest. Glowing red points indicated disturbances across the mystical landscape, concentrated particularly around a stone circle deep within the most ancient section of woods. The ancestral grove, she identified as the group gathered around the display. a place where the veil between dimensions has always been naturally thin. According to the Xenotome, it was one of the original nexus points established during the first confluence. And now it's being prepared as a convergence amplification site, Jen deduced. Her temporal technology interfaces automatically synchronizing with the magical display. Time Force is detecting chronal distortions consistent with preliminary boundary manipulation. The other Mystic Rangers are currently unreachable, Udana continued, concern evident beneath her composed exterior. They ventured into the deeper magical dimensions to secure allied assistance for the coming convergence. Vita is currently our only active Mystic Force Ranger. Then we work with what we have, Tommy decided with characteristic leadership. 5 of us should be sufficient to investigate and, if necessary, contain the situation until reinforcements arrive. Before you go, Claire interjected, approaching with several crystalline pendants similar to the one she'd given Naruto earlier. These attunement crystals will help you navigate the magical currents of the ancestral grove. For non-mystics, the dimensional fluctuations there can be disorienting. As Kira, Jen, and Tommy accepted the protective amulets, Udana turned to Naruto with scholarly interest. Your chakra has already begun integrating magical frequencies through the resonance with Vita. I experience unexpected manifestations as you approach the convergence point, particularly given the Rinnegan's sensitivity to dimensional boundaries. I've been adapting to new power expressions since arriving in this dimension. Naruto acknowledged. Though I'll admit, magical energy feels more intuitive than technological resonance. Closer to nature chakra from my world. Because they share common origins, Udana confirmed. The ancient texts suggest that during the first confluence, what became separated into distinct systems, chakra, magic, morphing grid energy, was originally a unified force. The boundaries between dimensions created specialized expressions of what was once a singular power. This perspective aligned with revelations from Time Force headquarters, the idea that current energy systems represented artificial specialization of what had once been universal. If true, it suggested that the approaching convergence might offer opportunity for reintegration rather than merely presenting threat. We should proceed to the ancestral grove, Jen advised, her scanner indicating accelerating temporal distortions. These readings suggest active manipulation rather than passive manifestation. Vita led them through Rutkor's rear entrance, following ancient paths visible only to those attuned to magical currents. As they ventured deeper into the forest, reality itself became increasingly fluid, trees occasionally phasing between seasons, flowers blooming and withering in accelerated cycles, glimpses of otherworldly landscapes visible through momentary tears in the dimensional fabric. The boundary is particularly thin here, Vita explained as they navigated the shifting terrain. Even under normal conditions, you might occasionally glimpse the magical dimensions overlapping with the human world. With the convergence approaching, those glimpses are becoming sustained apertures. Naruto activated the Rinnegan, its enhanced perception revealing patterns invisible to normal sight. It's similar to what happened at Silver Hills, but with different fundamental properties. There, the temporal aspects dominated. Here, it's more elemental. Like reality itself is composed of different natural forces in conversation with each other. Magical dimensions operate on principles closer to your world's nature chakra system, Vita confirmed. Elements aren't just physical components but conscious forces with agency and intention. As they approached the ancestral grove, Naruto felt the crystal Udana had given him pulse with increasing energy. His chakra network responded, pathways opening to magical frequencies that would normally remain dormant. The sensation resembled Sage Mode activation but with greater diversity of input, as though nature itself spoke in multiple dialects simultaneously. The grove itself proved both beautiful and unsettling, a perfect circle of monolithic stones surrounding an open area where reality visibly thinned. The massive stones, each easily 20 feet tall, were covered in carvings that combined symbols from multiple magical traditions alongside what Naruto recognized as ancient chakra formulations from his world. This predates human civilization, Tommy observed with academic reverence. These stones were placed during the first confluence by the original mystics working alongside the Sage of Six Paths, Vita confirmed. According to our records, they created 27 such circles across both dimensions, establishing the network that would maintain separation while allowing controlled energy flow between worlds. At the circle's center stood an altar-like structure, a flat stone platform inscribed with concentric rings that mirrored the Rinnegan's pattern. Currently, the platform had been modified with technological components that seemed fundamentally at odds with the grove's ancient magic. Crystalline structures pulsed with sickly green energy, forcing unnatural patterns upon the dimensional boundary. Kabuto's work, Naruto identified immediately, recognizing the hybrid technology that combined elements from both dimensions. He's attempting to create a controlled aperture, a one-way passage that would allow selective transfer without full convergence. Essentially a dimensional filter, Gen elaborated, scanning the modifications with growing concern. Designed to extract specific elements from both worlds while maintaining overall separation. And here's the welcome committee, Kira warned as movement registered at the grove's edge. White Zetsu variants emerged from between the ancient stones. These specimens displaying even more pronounced magical modifications than those they'd encountered in the city. Their bodies incorporated elements of magical creatures, some with bark-like skin and branch-like limbs, others with crystalline growths emerging from their shoulders, still others with eyes that glowed with elemental energies. Forest variants, Naruto assessed, chakra flowing through his system as he prepared for combat. They've adapted to the magical environment by incorporating local energetic patterns. They're desecrating the sacred circle, Vita growled, genuine anger flaring beneath her usual confident exterior. These stones have stood uncorrupted for 10,000 years. Then let's clean house, Kira suggested, activating her morpher. Dino thunder, power up. The others followed suit, transformations completing with practiced efficiency. Naruto's hybrid armor manifested with visible magical influence, the normally solid orange base now incorporating flowing patterns reminiscent of wind-borne leaves, reflecting his developing resonance with Vita's magical frequency. The battle erupted across the ancient grove, each ranger employing their specialized abilities against the magically enhanced Zetsu. Tommy's experience and versatility complemented Gen's precise temporal tactics, while Kira's sonic powers disrupted the creature's magical cohesion. Vita transformed repeatedly between human and elemental forms, becoming a pink whirlwind one moment, a lightning bolt the next, keeping the enemy constantly disoriented. Naruto found his abilities evolving in real time, the Rinnegan adapting to incorporate magical principles into established techniques. When he created shadow clones, they appeared with mystical enhancement. Some temporarily incorporating elemental aspects, others displaying rune-like symbols across their armor that amplified specific abilities. Most fascinating was how his established connections manifested during coordinated attacks. When fighting alongside Kira, their combined techniques carried dinosaur energy harmonics that enhanced physical impact. With Gen, temporal precision allowed for acts that literally accelerated or decelerated an opponent's personal timeline. And with Vita, elemental magic infused his chakra with transformative properties that increased adaptability. They're protecting the altar, Naruto called out, the Rinnegan perceiving tactical patterns in the Zetsu deployment, concentrating their strongest units around the modification equipment. Then that's our primary target, Tommy decided, gathering the team for a coordinated assault. Gen, create a temporal bubble around the perimeter units to isolate them. Vita, use wind transformation to clear a path to the center. Kira, sonic disruption on the inner defensive ring. Naruto and I will take the altar directly. The plan executed with precision born of professional experience. Gen's temporal manipula, Chion trapped dozens of Zetsu in localized time dilation, slowing their movements to imperceptible rates. Vita transformed into a pink cyclone, carving a path through remaining defenders with elemental force. Kira's Terra scream shattered the inner defensive formation, crystal-enhanced Zetsu collapsing as their magical modifications resonated catastrophically with her sonic frequency. This created the opening Tommy and Naruto needed, both warriors charging toward the central altar with complementary fighting styles, where Tommy's technique reflected decades of martial arts mastery combined with ranger experience. Naruto's approach incorporated the fluid adaptability of ninja training enhanced by the Rinnegan's perceptive advantages. Upon reaching the altar, Naruto immediately recognized his sophisticated integration of technologies and mystical elements in Kabuto's modifications. It's a dimensional filtration system, he confirmed, the Rinnegan analyzing operational principles. Daisy. GNED to selectively extract entities and energies from both dimensions based on specific resonance patterns. Can you disable it? Tommy asked, maintaining defensive position against approaching reinforcements. Naruto studied the complex array, identifying key junction points where technological components interfaced with the altar's ancient inscriptions. Not conventionally. The system is DAISY, GNED with redundant safeguards. Disrupting one element would simply trigger adaptive reconfiguration. Then we overload it, Kira suggested, joining them after dispatching her assigned targets. Hit it with more power than it's calibrated to handle. Risky, Jen cautioned, temporal scanner evaluating potential outcomes. An uncontrolled overload could exacerbate the dimensional instability rather than neutralizing it. What about magical reconsecration? Vita proposed, arriving in human form after her elemental assault. These stones were originally empowered through mystical ritual. Per APS we can reactivate their original purpose to override Kabuto's modifications. The suggestion triggered recognition in Naruto's chakra memory, access to knowledge not consciously learned but somehow understood through the Rinnegan's connection to ancient practices. The synchronization ritual, he identified, the term emerging from depths beyond normal recall. It was used during the first conference. Luance to harmonize interdimensional energy flows. Is that even possible without the full Mystic Force team? Tommy questioned, practical concerns balancing theoretical potential. Not conventionally, Naruto admitted. But the Xenotome indicated that the concordance web, the energy synchronization between myself and compatible rangers, serves a similar function to the original ritual components. Understanding dawned across the group as implications clarified. The three of us, Kira realized, gesturing between herself, Vita, and Jen. Our established connections with you create the Founda. Chion for a smaller scale version of the ritual. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, with Tommy providing the stabilizing influence of experience and leadership, essentially functioning as the ritual anchor. Jen's analytical mind immediately processed tactical applications. Temporal calculations suggest a 73% probability of success if we establish precise energy synchronization. The remaining 27% resents unknown variables inherent in experimental interdimensional manipulation. Better odds than we usually get, Tommy observed wryly. What do we need to do? Vita, most familiar with magical ritual through her Mystic Force training, took the lead in practical implementation. The stone circle provides natural amplification. We should position ourselves at cardinal points, with Naruto at T. He center where the Rinnegan can interface directly with the altar's original configuration. As the team moved to their assigned positions, the Zetsu forces retreated to the grove's perimeter, observing with unnatural stillness that suggested remote monitoring. Something about their coordinated withdrawal raised Naruto's combat instincts, but the immediate priority remained neutralizing the dimensional filtration system before it could achieve operational status. Everyone, power down to base form, Naruto instructed, intuiting the ritual's requirements. The synchronization needs direct energy contact without the interference of transformation layers. The Rangers complied, their armored forms dissolving to reveal their human appearances. Naruto followed suit, his hybrid armor receding. As the Rinnegan remained active, the only power manifestation necessary for the ritual's focal point. Now channel your specific energy toward me, he continued, kneeling at the altar's center, hands forming a ritual seal that combined elements from mystical traditions and ninja practices. Focus on our established connection rather than general power projection. As the others complied, Naruto felt distinct energy signatures flowing toward him. Kira's yellow Dino power carrying notes of determination and creative passion, Jen's temporal energy precise and methodically structured, Vita's Ikal wind vibrating with rebellious freedom and elemental harmony. Tommy's contribution provided the grounding influence of experience and leadership, a stabilizing presence that balanced the other's specialized resonances. The Rinnegan began to glow with increasing intensity, its concentric circles spinning as Naruto channeled the combined energies through its interdimensional perception. The altar beneath him responded, ancient inscriptions illuminating with golden light that spread outward, counteracting the sickly green of Kabuto's modifications. It's working, Vita observed, magical Sen. S is perceiving the ritual's effects on surrounding dimensional boundaries. The original consecration is reasserting itself. As the golden energy reached the stone circle's perimeter, the massive monoliths began resonating with deep harmonic tones, a cosmic chord that vibrated at frequencies beyond normal hearing. The Zetsu observers retreated further, their modified bodies apparently sensitive to the purifying harmonics. At the ritual's center, Naruto experienced something extraordinary. The Rinnegan's perception expanded beyond normal parameters, allowing simultaneous awareness of multiple dimensional layers. He could see both the physical grove and its counterparts in parallel realities, identical stone circles existing across dimensional boundaries, creating a network of synchronized power nodes. Most astonishingly, he glimpsed figures at corresponding positions in these parallel circles, individuals performing similar rituals in their respective dimensions. Through the resonating harmonics, he recognized some as legendary rangers from this world's history, others as significant figures from his own dimension's past. And at one particular node, he saw familiar faces, Kakashi, Sakura, and others from the allied shinobi forces, gathered around a stone circle identical to the one in Briarwood but located in a forest he recognized from his home dimension. They were attempting a corresponding ritual under Kakashi's guidance, apparently aware through some means of the synchronization occurring across dimensional boundaries. There responding, he communicated to his team, voice resonating with the ritual's harmonic frequency. The allied forces in my dimension, they've established a corresponding ritual circle. We're achieving cross-dimensional synchronization. The revelation energized the team, their focused power intensifying as awareness of parallel efforts strengthened their resolve. The altar's original functions activated fully, golden light enveloping Kabuto's modifications and systematically neutralizing their corrupting influence. Crystalline components shattered, technological interfaces dissolved, and the unnatural green energy dissipated entirely. As the ritual reached its crescendo, Naruto experienced direct mental contact with the corresponding ritual's focal point, Kakashi, whose Sharingan established momentary consciousness synchronization across dimensions. Naruto. His mentor's voice resonated directly in his mind. We received your messages through the dimensional viewing techniques. The allied forces are holding position, but Mad Era has begun assembling the components for the Ten Tails revival. The convergence is approaching in both dimensions, Naruto replied through their temporary connection. Kabuto is working with entities from this world to manipulate the natural cycle for his own purposes. We've discovered ancient records describing the previous convergence, Kakashi confirmed. The Sage of Six Paths apparent. Lee collaborated with powers from your current dimension to establish the chakra system as we know it. And created the morphing grid here, Naruto added. They're complementary systems designed to maintain dimensional separation while allowing controlled energy flow between worlds. The connection began to waver as the ritual's peak intensity passed. Naruto. Kakashi's voice faded slightly. Whatever happens during the convergence, remember that you're not forgotten here. Your path may have diverged from ours, but you remain essential to both worlds. The simple affirmation, acknowledgement, that his displacement hadn't erased his significance in his home dimension, affected Naruto profoundly. As the interdimensional connection faded, the ritual's golden energy concentrated inward, flowing back through the stone circle to the central altar where it coalesced into a crystalline sphere approximately the size of a fist. Dimensional harmony crystal, Vita identified with reverent awe as the ritual concluded. I've only seen illustrations in the most ancient magical texts. It's a physical manifestation of balanced interdimensional energy. The crystal levitated briefly before settling into Naruto's outstretched hands. Within its translucent depths, swirled energies representing both dimensions, chakra patterns intertwining with morphing grid frequencies, magic harmonizing with nature energy. All achieving temporary perfect balance. The ritual did more than neutralize Kabuto's modifications, Jen observed, her temporal scanner analyzing ambient energy patterns. It established a localized stabilization effect that should protect this region during the approaching convergence peak. And created a tangible focus for the energetic connections we've established, Kira added. Sensing how her yellow Dino energy maintained a constant thread to the crystal in Naruto's hands. It's like a physical manifestation of the concordance web the Xenodome described. Tommy approached, examining the crystal with experienced caution. What are its capabilities? It's primarily a stabilization tool, Naruto explained, the Rinnegan perceiving the crystal's intricate energy matrix. But it also serves as a communication conduit between synchronized points in both dimensions. We could potentially coordinate convergence responses across realities using this as a focal point. As they gathered their equipment and prepared to return to Rootcore, Naruto became aware of a significant shift in his connection to this dimension. Where previously he had maintained a certain metaphysical distance, a visitor rather than inhabitant, the ritual had established deeper roots. His chakra network now incorporated elements of this world's fundamental energy patterns, creating bonds that transcended mere physical presence. Most notably, his connections with Kira, Gen, and now Vita had strengthened considerably through their participation in the ritual. Each bond maintained its distinct character. Yellow Dino energy warm and creatively vibrant, temporal frequencies precisely structured yet adaptable, magical wind playfully rebellious while elementally grounded, but all had deepened beyond simple resonance to genuine integration. Vita noticed his thoughtful expression as they navigated back through the forest. The ritual changed something for you, didn't it? She asked perceptively. Beyond just creating the crystal. Naruto nodded, appreciating her intuitive understanding. In my world, there's a concept called root binding, when a transplanted tree establishes sufficient connection to new soil that it becomes truly part of its new environment rather than merely surviving in it. You're putting down roots here, she interpreted accurately. Becoming part of this Scion rather than just passing through it. Yes, he acknowledged, though I'm not sure what that means for my eventual return to my home dimension, if such return is even possible after the convergence. Maybe it doesn't have to be either or, Vita suggested, her natural optimism providing fresh perspective. The ritual showed that synchronized points exist in both dimensions. Perhaps the final outcome isn't choosing between worlds but establishing sustainable connection between them. The possibility resonated with Naruto's developing understanding of his role in the convergence. If the Rinnegan's purpose involved interdimensional harmonization rather than separation enforcement, perhaps his destiny included bridging worlds rather than choosing between them. Such philosophical considerations paused as they reached Rootcore, where Udana awaited with evident relief at their successful return. Her expression shifted to reverent wonder upon seeing the dimensional harmony crystal in Naruto's possession. You've accomplished something thought impossible without a full mystical conclave, she observed, studying the crystal without touching it. The synchronized ritual hasn't been successfully performed since the first confluence. It wouldn't have been possible without the established energy connections, Naruto explained, acknowledging his teammates' contributions. The Confronting dance web provided the necessary framework, which still requires 4 additional connections before the convergence peak, Tommy reminded them, practical concerns tempering their accomplishment. According to both the Xenodome and Time Force predictions, we have less than 5 days remaining. And Kabuto will certainly accelerate his efforts after this setback, Gen added. The filtration system's neutralization represents significant disruption to his operational timeline. As if confirming her assessment, the Xenodome's pages suddenly turned rapidly, magical energy crackling around its ancient binding. New text appeared, symbols rearranging themselves into forms partially decipherable through the Rinnegan's perception. The usurper seeks the dome of survival, Naruto translated. Reading the freshly manifested prophecy. Where humanity's remnants endure beneath shielded sky, the 4th and 5th harmonies await amidst machinery and desolation. Dome of survival, Hira questioned, the description triggering no immediate recognition. Corinth, Tommy identified after momentary consideration. The RPM Rangers' Dome City, the last human stronghold in their post-apocalyptic world. But that's in an alternate timeline, Gen noted with professional concern. A potential future rather than our primary reality. The convergence is affecting all dimensions simultaneously, Udana explained. Her extensive magical knowledge providing crucial context, including alternate timelines, parallel realities, and potential futures. As the boundaries thin, these separate dimensional tracks become increasingly accessible to one another, which means Kabuto can potentially access powers and technologies from across the entire multiversal spectrum, Tommy concluded grimly. Including futures where humanity developed advanced technologies to combat extinction-level threats. Naruto studied the crystal in his hands, its swirling energies reflecting the growing complexity of their situation. The prophecy mentions fourth and fifth harmonies, two more connections to be established in this current location. The RPM Rangers, Tommy confirmed. Specifically, according to the text's reference to machinery and desolation, we're likely looking for team members associated with those elements. How do we even reach an alternate timeline? Kira asked practically. That's beyond standard Ranger teleportation technology. Jen activated her temporal scanner, performing complex calculations with practiced efficiency. With time force equipment and the dimensional crystal as a focusing mechanism, I believe we can create a targeted aperture specifically calibrated for the RPM dimension. I'll contact Dr. K. Tommy decided, referring to the RPM team's mentor and technical genius. She should be advised of our potential arrival, and the interdimensional threat that may target their city. As preparations began for this next phase of their increasingly complex mission, Naruto found a moment of relative quiet to examine the dimensional harmony crystal more thoroughly. Within its crystalline matrix, he could perceive something extraordinary, a perfect miniature model of the interdimensional network established during the first confluence, showing how both worlds' energy systems had been designed as complementary rather than separate systems. Most intriguingly, he recognized patterns suggesting intentional interconnection points, places where the original designers had specifically created pathways for controlled interaction between dimensions. These weren't flaws or weaknesses but deliberately engineered transfer junctions, suggesting the original intent had never been absolute separation but managed cooperation between distinct but related realities. What are you seeing? Vita asked, noticing his intense focus on the crystal. Evidence that separation may not have been the original goal, Naruto replied thoughtfully. The first confluence didn't just establish boundaries, it created structured connection points. Controlled bridges rather than absolute walls. Which means the approaching convergence might not be something to prevent entirely, Vita reasoned. Following his logic, but rather something to guide toward its intended purpose rather than Kabuto's corrupted version. Exactly, Naruto confirmed, the Rinnegan perceiving deeper layers of the original design. The Sage and Zordon weren't trying to permanently isolate dimensions from each other, they were establishing sustainable interaction protocols that would allow beneficial exchange without catastrophic merger. This perspective shifted their strategic framework significantly. Rather than simply opposing Kabuto's manipulations, perhaps their true purpose LVED reclaiming the convergence's original intent, facilitating healthy interdimensional interaction rather than either complete separation or chaotic combination. As the team finalized preparations for their journey to the RPM dimension, Naruto sensed growing alignment between his evolving understanding and his established connections. Kira, Jen, and Vita each represented distinct but complementary aspects of this dimension's fundamental energies: dinosaur power connecting to ancient natural forces, temporal energy providing chronological stability, magical frequencies accessing elemental consciousness. What would the remaining connections bring to this developing web? What aspects of both dimensions would ultimately prove necessary for proper convergence management? And how would these deepening bonds affect his personal path forward, his identity stretched across worlds that were never meant to be entirely separate in the first place? These questions would find answers in the days ahead as the convergence approached its peak. For now, the journey continued, to a domed city in a post-apocalyptic timeline where fourth and fifth harmonies awaited amidst machinery and desolation, new connection bringing both power and complexity to his interdimensional role. Chapter 4 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.